Good morning, everyone. So the time is 9:31. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the meeting for Tuesday, April 15th. Erica, can you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Mullica.
Here.
Commissioner Henson.
Here.
Commissioner Pinter.
Here.
Commissioner Odoracio.
Here.
Commissioner Baca.
Here. If you can please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Need a motion to approve today's agenda or any changes.
Madam Chair, I move to approve today's agenda with the exception of I'd like to remove consent calendar item H and have that become an action item.
Second. That motion passes 5-0. So we're on to awards and presentations. We have 3 proclamations today. I'm going to start with the first one, and then we have Commissioner Henson and then Commissioner Pinter. So, good morning, everyone. Today we're honored to recognize the Festival of Rezvan Bahi, a very special and sacred time for members of the Bahi faith. This 12-day festival marks a time of spiritual renewal, joy, and unity, and it reminds us of the power of peace and the importance of community. Those values resonate deeply with us here in Adams County, where we celebrate the diversity and faith traditions that make our community stronger. Recognizing holidays like Rezvan, is part of our commitment to honoring multiculturalism and showing respect for the values our neighbors hold dear. We're grateful for the opportunity to learn from and honor our Bahi neighbors during this meaningful, important time. So on to the proclamation. So whereas the year of the Bahi community worldwide observes the festival of Rezvan this year starting on April 20th through May 1st of 2025. And whereas Adams County has Bahi communities in Westminster, Commerce City, Thornton, and North Glen who celebrate these holy days during Rezvan every year. And whereas the Bahi international community espouses a world free from prejudice and hate, peaceful and prosperous for all. And whereas the Bahi seek to serve their community and humankind through meaningful work, which done in the fullness of the heart is considered worship. Whereas Bahi live in nearly all countries on earth and are changed with the working for peace and understanding among all peoples. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of the County of Adams, State of Colorado, proclaims April 20th through May 1st, 2025 as the Bahi Festival of Rezvan, and encourages all residents to honor these celebrations and the contributions made by the local international Bahi communities toward lasting peace, signed by all 5 of the county commissioners. Also this month, we have April is the Fair Housing Month, and it's a chance for all of us to reflect on something very important, making sure everyone has a fair and equal chance of having a place to call home. I was able to attend the Brighton Housing Authority ribbon cutting last week, where they're remodeling 120 units in the city of Brighton. So this is something that we strive for as a community to provide here in Adams County. Safe and stable housing is the foundation for so much health, education, and opportunity. And it should never depend on your race, family status, or how much money you make. So thank you to our staff across multiple departments and programs who work to help support fair, safe housing for all members of our community, as well as the advocates, the housing providers, and the community partners who work every day to make fair housing a reality, not just during April, but all year long. So would you like to read the proclamation, Commissioner? Then we'll invite Jenny Hall, the Director of the Community Economic Development team, to come down and speak.
Absolutely. Thank you, Madam Chair. It's my pleasure to read the proclamation declaring April 2025 Fair Housing Month in Adams County, Colorado. Whereas the Fair Housing Act, enacted on April 11, 1968, enshrined into federal law the goal of eliminating racial segregation and ending housing discrimination in the United States. And whereas the Fair Housing Act prohibits discrimination on housing based on race, color, religion, sex, familial status, national origin, and disability. And whereas the ongoing struggle for dignity and housing opportunity for us all is not the exclusive providence of the federal government. And whereas vigorous local efforts are taken to remove illegal barriers to opportunity in housing. And whereas Adams County is committed to the mission and intent of the Fair Housing Act to provide fair and equal housing opportunities for all and to affirmatively further fair housing. Now, therefore, be it resolved that in pursuit of the shared goal and responsibility of providing equal housing opportunities for all, the Board of Commissioners of the County of Adams, State of Colorado, does hereby proclaim April 2025 as Fair Housing Month, and encourages all agencies, institutions, and individuals, public and private, in Adams County to abide by the letter and the spirit of the Fair Housing Act. And we do have a copy of the proclamation signed by all 5 commissioners.
Good morning, Jenny.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Jenny Hull, Community and Economic Development Director, and I just want to thank you all for the opportunity to highlight the topic of fair housing that is fundamental to strong, healthy, and vibrant communities here across Adams County, across the state, and across our country. I'm joined this morning by our Housing Policy and Community Investments team, led by Manager Melissa Sherry, and I'd just like to ask these folks from Community and Economic Development in particular to stand for just a moment so I can thank them. We have Rick Reed, Grisel Esquivel, Thane Sandoval, Sonia McLaughlin, and Esther Fierro. But of course, as you acknowledge, there are staff across many departments that support our fair housing efforts. The Fair Housing Act, passed in 1968, was truly a landmark step toward ensuring that no one is denied housing based on race, color, national origin, religion, sex, disability, or familial status. But fair housing is not just about legal protections. It's also about dignity, equity, and the right of every person to live where they choose without fear of bias or discrimination. When housing is fair and accessible, communities are stronger, more resilient and diverse, and filled with opportunity. There's a substantial body of research that demonstrates that how and where we live shapes opportunities across our lifespan. Our access to good schools, decent jobs, healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe environments. Yet for too many people, discrimination still stands in the way of finding a home, and laws alone are not enough. It's up to all of us, policymakers, public servants, landlords, developers, real estate professionals, and everyday residents and neighbors to uphold these rights and push back against discrimination, whether by advocating for stronger protections, reporting unfair practices, or simply fostering awareness and a sense of belonging in our neighborhoods. We all play a role in holding our community accountable in protecting this civil right. Let's work together to make it a reality for everyone. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So after the last proclamation, we're going to ask Jenny and your team to come down and take a photo, and anyone else here in the housing space that would like to come down and take a photo. So this week, we're also shining a light on a group of folks here in Adams County, often work quietly behind the scenes, but make a huge difference in our community, our animal control officers. So we're proud to recognize Animal Control Appreciation Week, a time to honor the dedication, compassion, and professionalism of our animal management team here in Adams County. These officers do far more than care for lost or stray animals. They're educators, public safety responders, and advocates for pets, for people, and for the health of our entire community. From rescuing animals in distress to supporting responsible pet ownership, enforcing important safety regulations, and reuniting pets with their people. Their work touches thousands of lives each year. Their work isn't always easy, but it's full of heart. So with that, Commissioner Pinter, and you don't get salami,
Salami the snake?
Salami the snake is not here.
Well, hopefully Salami the snake does not need to be rescued and is happy at home with his people in his enclosure. But for any animals who might be lost, or any animals in distress, or any ducklings in storm drains, I'm happy to read this proclamation. Animal Control Appreciation Week, April 13th through 19th, 2025. Whereas the National Animal Care and Control Association has designated the second week of April as National Animal Control Appreciation Week, and whereas various federal, state, and local government officials throughout the county take time to recognize and thank and commend all animal management officers for their dedicated service they provide to the citizens, public safety, and public agencies and departments across the nation and right here at home. Whereas every day, animal management officers put themselves in potentially dangerous situations to protect the health, welfare, and safety of animals and the public. And whereas the Adams County Board of County Commissioners recognizes and commends the animal management officers for your many dedicated and long hours of service in serving this community and for fulfilling the county's highest commitment to provide the highest and most efficient level of customer service. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Adams County Board of County Commissioners does hereby officially recognize the week of April 13th through 19th, 2025 as National Animal Control Appreciation Week and encourages all citizens, public safety, health, and public service personnel to join us in expressing sincere thanks and appreciation for the many long hours of outstanding service these individuals provide throughout the year to assure the safety and welfare of all. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. So now I'd like to invite Stacy and Natalie Clark from the Community Safety and Wellbeing Department to speak about this proclamation and the incredible work of their team. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Stacey Mogwood. I'm the Human Services Manager. I just really want to thank you guys for taking
Great, thank you so much. So now we're going to take photos. So animal control, don't go too far for your appreciation week. You're the first one up, followed then by the Fair Housing Month. So all the staff and advocates for fair housing, and then those that are here for the festival. So we're going to start with Animal Control Appreciation Week, Fair Housing, followed by the festival. And we'll meet you right down here in the front. Okay, we're on to item number 5, public comment. Erica, do you have anyone signed up for public comment
We do have 2 people signed up for land use today.
for the land use cases? Okay, we'll get to land use here in just a moment. Is there any elected official communication? Commissioner Henson.
Hi, thank you. I just want to say thanks to our team and to the staff and to all the residents who participated in our telephone town hall last night. We had some folks stayed on for the full 90 minutes, several hundred actually, which allows us, these town halls are really important, both in person and telephone town halls, to answer questions from the community, be able to give answers in real time. And when we're online like that with the telephone town hall, we're able to give, we're out streaming live on our social media, giving play-by-play, also updating our website as questions come in to provide links and resources for people who choose to access information that way. And also folks can just listen to our answers and people who call in can request outreach. They can provide email addresses. We are working on the scheduling those out for the rest of the year. I don't have those dates for you today, but I do look forward to participating in more of those town halls, both virtual and in person, because it's the best way for us to hear from the community about what we can do to make Adams County an even better place for all of us. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. I will just add that I want to send our congratulations to the Sheriff's Department. So the end of last week, the entire board and our administrative staff were able to attend the Sheriff's Award ceremony. The Sheriff awarded many in his departments for all the good work that they do in community, including the Medal of Valor and some other very important awards. So the sheriff recognized this board of county commissioners and our staff that were able to attend, that it was the first time in 26 years that the entire board, our county attorney, the county management staff were able to attend. So we really appreciate that recognition by the sheriff. Please thank your law enforcement officers each and every day, and especially those here in the sheriff's office. So that's all I have. Any other commissioners? Commissioner DeRicio.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, Commissioner Bach, because we also had it was Victims' Rights Week last week. So you have this, all these stories coming out of the award ceremony for the sheriff's office, and then the next day we had a similar event where we attended, and it was about Victims' Rights Week, and similar stories of challenges of public safety and moments of heroism and resiliency. And I just want to thank this board. I want to thank our staff for working with us to make sure that we're supporting those folks in public safety. And I do believe that we do have a board and staff and executive leadership who really support public safety. And it is something that our community really cares a lot about. But it was a heavy week listening to these stories of tragedy, heroism, but overall resilience and people coming together at the end for each other. So thank you all very much.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. So now we're on to the consent calendar.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar with the removal of item H.
I'll second.
And the consent calendar passes 5-0. So item 7 under new business, county manager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first item of new business is a resolution approving an agreement between Adams County and Colorado Moisture Control in the amount of $1,047,683 for the corner roof removal and replacement project. Here to present, I think, is Mike Van Gorder of Facilities.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Mike Van Gorder. I'm a Facility Operations Supervisor. The Corners and Probation Roof System was originally installed in 2006, original to when the facility was built. The current roof system is a rock ballasted system, and the system is no longer utilized in the roofing industry and has exceeded its useful life expectancy. The county's roofing consultant recommends full roof replacement to include flashings, metal trim, gutter, downspouts. Funding for this project was approved in 2024 budget, and during this time, engineered roof plans for the project have been completed. On January 23rd of 2025, Facility Operations and Purchasing conducted a mandatory pre-bid for the RFP that was sent to all vendors on the board-approved SOQ pre-qualified vendors list. There was a total of 3 vendors that participated in the bidding process and provided proposals to the evaluation team. The participating vendors and pricing submitted by the following: Colorado Moisture Control, $1,047,683. Front Range Roofing, $1,155,805. Tector Roofing, $1,257,628. After completing the evaluation review process, it was determined that Colorado Moisture Control was the lowest responsive and responsible bidder Facility operation recommends an agreement with Colorado Moisture Control for the corner and probation roof replacement project in the amount of $1,047,683. Any questions?
Questions from the board? Okay,
Thank you.
I just need a motion.
Yeah, I'm happy to make the motion to approve. Let me make sure I have the phrasing correct. Resolution approving an agreement between Adams County and Colorado Moisture Control in the amount of $1,047,683 for the corner roof removal replacement project, RFP 2025.203. And take a moment to thank the staff for all the materials you provided, your presentation today, and all the detail about getting this particular project right. So thank you.
The motion passes 5-0. So county manager.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. The next item up is former consent item H, a resolution authorizing the Director and Deputy Director of Parks, Open Space, and Cultural Arts entering into entertainment, food concessions, sponsors, and exhibitor agreements for the purpose of securing entertainment, food, vending, sponsorships, and exhibitors for events hosted by Parks, Open Space, and Cultural Arts Department. Here to present is Byron Fanning, Parks Director.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, commissioners. Is there a specific question, or would you like me just to talk a little bit about where these come from and how many and that sort of thing?
No, thank you. My question is, I guess it's a kind of a process question. I assumed this was part of your duties in your job description, so I was curious why we need to pass a resolution for that. So I don't know if that is a question for you or if that's for our attorney. So I guess that's my first question: is what is the necessity of this resolution?
So I can clarify a little bit. We generally, our directors only have authority to enter into contracts up to a certain value, $50,000.
Okay.
So even if it's approved in the budget already, they don't have authority to sign those contracts. And because the fair has a large volume of contracts that come very quickly and have very short turnaround, we have historically adopted a separate process for these fair contracts that allows your director of parks to sign these. They're still reviewed by the county attorney's office. They still have to be within budget, but it just allows us to process them more quickly and not have to go through the public hearing process for approval.
Oh, thank you. And so I'm assuming that the smaller contracts can add up to. So is that number ever looked at in aggregate? That number would come back to the board, say, tracking how much is being spent on, because our 5 primary events that we have 5, right? Yeah.
So generally, no, there is not an aggregate decision. It's truly each contract. So as long as they're separate contracts with separate vendors and they're under $50,000, the director could sign them. But this resolution is actually allowing your parks director to sign contracts of higher value for this particular purpose. So you're just delegating that authority. There are no higher
No,
value.
this is for smaller contracts, Heidi.
Okay.
Yep.
So it really is just giving the director authority to process these more quickly and not go through our traditional process.
And that's because these will be, and we're authorizing contracts in excess of $50,000.
Actually, Byron's saying no.
These are $15,000.
Oh, 15.
Yes.
Okay. So
Yeah.
is it? I was confused. I thought you said 50. I'm confused on the amount.
1.5.
So because these are in excess of 15.
These are below $15,000.
Okay.
It's just a huge volume of contracts. And yes,
right.
And then when they add up, there's probably about 300 total contracts that we sign each year. And I think we come before you just because we're going to be signing that volume of contracts. We just want to get authorization to do that.
Right, but then do you come back with a number as we're getting closer to the event? Is that something under our? I guess my other question is that under our purview or no?
Yeah, and I apologize. My explanation really made no sense. I thought we were coming because they were higher level contracts being signed. So I think it truly is just a notice to the board.
Yeah.
But no, they do not come back to you at public hearing in any way.
Okay. All right. Well, that's. I don't know if anybody else has questions. That was why I asked to have the item pulled, was for clarification.
Commissioner Mullica, then Commissioner Dorizio.
Yeah, thank you for that. And for I definitely see what Kathy is talking about though, because just having the board understand what the amount of money that we're going to be seeing and coming through, if that's not going to come back at public hearing, because it's all budgeted, right?
Correct.
And it's within the 2025 budget, and we're going to stay
Yes.
within that budget. So therefore, that's why you guys don't need to come back to us to sign off all of these items.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That helps me a little bit.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Dorizio?
Yeah. Okay. So I think part of the challenge is that this is kind of one-off compared to other departments that may be buying pencils here and software here, small amounts here and there. So I think that what we can do is we could come back. We have some new board members. We have, and then also it's good for us, even the older board members. I mean, the previous or existing board members. I wouldn't say older, but board members to kind of get back and level set in the processes. So I think what happens in a situation like this is not even you guys, but like all of us, is we can kind of shore up and say, okay, here are the processes. We can make it more easy for folks to follow on at home, and explain it, and then see why in this situation we do it this way. And this, I think what I'm seeing is that the spirit of trying to be transparent and say, look, you have a bunch of these, but it's because it's one effort. It's going to come over that threshold where we want some transparency and at least put it out there so people see it. And then what I'm hearing is, yes, but because sometimes we might go over, it's good to bring it back. So I think we can talk about all those things together as we move forward. Thank you for bringing it to us. I think the follow-up is also a part that we can talk about. When do we want to see it come back? Like, let's say it goes over budget, then we can come back and then put that out there to the public. So I look forward to those conversations. I would have no problem to make a motion to approve as presented unless there's additional discussion. Okay, I will make that motion to approve as presented.
Second.
Thank you.
That motion passes 5-0. So anything from the county attorney?
Not today. Thank you.
Not today. Okay. Staff needs just a moment to set up for land use. All right. So let's take about a 5-minute break and we'll come back at 10:10 and begin the land use hearings. All right, so we're going to go ahead and reconvene the meeting this morning to hear our land use hearings. It's about 10:12. So I'm going to go over the land use process and then I'll turn to staff to kick off our first presentation. So the land use process here at Adams County is that the staff will do a presentation on the topic. It will come back to the board for questions for staff. The applicant will then have an opportunity to make a presentation. It will come back to the board again for questions for the applicant and or staff at that point. Then we will ask for public comment. So we have there's one opportunity for the public to comment. So you have 3 minutes to speak. At about 2 minutes, with 30 seconds remaining, I will let you know to start winding down your comments. If you need any assistance making it to the podium, any other types of devices, a microphone, if you want to take the question from your seats, if you're unable, we're trying to remodel our space here, please let a staff member know. So you have one opportunity for public comment, even if it's just a question for the board, rather than maybe feedback that you have for us, please let us know also at that time during public comment. The applicant will have a response. If it's requested, it comes back to the board for discussion and then a motion. So at this time, I'd like staff to begin our first land use hearing, which is the Hanks Crossing Energy Project.
Thank you. Good morning, board.
Good morning.
Can everyone hear me okay? Awesome. Well, my name is Cody Spade. I'm a planner with the Community and Economic Development Department, here to present to you case number PRC 2024-4, the Hanks Crossing Energy Project, which is located at 7110 Hanks Crossing. There are two requests before you today, one being a conditional use permit to allow a large-scale solar energy facility in the Agriculture 3 zone district, as well as a conditional use permit to allow a utility substation in the Agriculture 3 zone district. Here are some aerial views of the site. Up in the right-hand corner, you can kind of get an idea of where this is in the county. It consists of 7 lots, totaling over 2,500 acres. To the north of the site, running along the northern portion, is East 88th Avenue, with Hanks Crossing Road bisecting the project, which is where the main access will be taken for this project. It should also be noted that there is an existing transmission line that runs to the northern edge along East 88th Avenue, for which this project will be connecting to. And I can get more into that later. The 7 lots included in this project, as well as the surrounding lots, are all zoned Agriculture 3. Both conditional use permits are permitted through the conditional use permit process within the Agriculture 3 zone district. And the future land use for all sites, as well as the surrounding area, is architecture large scale, which is consistent with both the request and the Agriculture 3 zone district. And here's some photos of the site. The 2 photos to the north, or to the top of the screen looking north along Hanks Crossing. These photos are taken from 7110 Hanks Crossing, and the 2 photos on the bottom looking southwest and southeast. As you can see, the general site is mostly vacant. There is a existing home and accessory structure located at 7110 Hanks Crossing, which will be removed for this project. But topography is generally flat and typically used for crops and grazing areas if it's not vacant. The site has previously been used for oil and gas wells. However, all have been plugged and abandoned. The applicant has provided setbacks to all equipment on site from those wells to prevent any overlap. And the applicant also obtained formal approval for an areas and activities of state interest permit, known as a 1041 permit, to allow major facilities of public utility. And that goes hand in hand with that transmission line that I mentioned earlier that runs along the northern property boundary of the site. And when reviewing a conditional use permit, the criteria that shall be considered is that it's permitted in the zone district, it's consistent with the performance standards, complies with those standards, and is harmonious and compatible with the surrounding area, address all off-site impacts, the site being suitable for the use with a convenient and functional layout, as well as adequate services to support the use. And here is the applicant submitted site plan. As you can see, it's a pretty large facility. In the blue rectangle up on the northern edge of the property is where that energy facility will be located, adjacent to those transmission lines that are running on the northern property line of this property. The location of those transmission lines does create an opportunity for everything to be contained within this site and prevent any off-site development. The applicant has also worked with the county as well as CPW to provide a wildlife corridor across the center, bisecting the middle to prevent habitat fragmentation. And during the referral period, we did send out 13 notifications to property owners and occupants within 2 miles. We did receive 3 comments in support, and referral agencies had no concerns. A public hearing before the Planning Commission was held on March 27th, 2025. Planning Commission did not have any questions for staff, but did have questions for the applicant, including the current use of the property, which is crops and grazing of cattle, where the power goes, which is to the Public Service Company of Colorado in association with that power line to the north, the typical battery life, which is 20 years, and if the applicant had previous experience in solar development, which they did. No members of the public were present to speak during the public hearing, and the Planning Commission voted unanimously 7-0 to recommend approval, with the amendment to condition of approval number 5 to limit the scope of construction buffers in proximity to raptors nests that were recommended by CPW. And so during staff's analysis, we do feel that this complies with the zone district standards, is consistent with the development standards and regulations. There are adequate public facilities and infrastructure to support the proposed development. It is compatible and harmonious to the surrounding area, and all off-site impacts have been properly addressed. Therefore, staff is recommending approval of the conditional use permits for a large energy facility and a utility substation, PRC 2024-4, with 16 findings of fact, 6 conditions, and 1 note. The findings of fact are as follows. And the conditions including that these conditional use permits shall expire on April 15th, 2055 for a duration of 30 years. The operator shall conform to the decommissioning plan provided with this application. The associated building permits shall substantially conform to these conditional use permits approved site plan. Adjustments to the fencing location may be approved administratively by the Community and Economic Development Department. However, the area enclosed by fencing may be increased by no more than 5%. All requirements of the water well permit issued by DWR must be met and maintained. And condition number 5, which was amended by the Planning Commission, reads as follows. The applicant shall comply with all requirements specified by the Colorado Department of Natural Resources Division of Parks and Wildlife provided in their letter dated August 16th, 2024, except for the quarter-mile NSO buffer around the active Swazens hawk nest. If construction occurs within the migratory bird nesting season in Colorado, which is April 1st to August 31st, nest surveys will be conducted prior to planned construction activities, and appropriate seasonal avoidance buffers will be implemented for active nests based on CPW's recommended buffer zones and seasonal restrictions for Colorado Raptors guidance document. And lastly, number 6, on April 15th, 2030, if a building permit has not been issued to establish the use for which the conditional use permit was approved, the conditional use permit shall expire and the use of the property shall revert to its formerly allowed uses without any action by the Board of County Commissioners. And lastly, the note to the applicant is that they shall comply with all building, zoning, fire, engineering, and health codes and regulations. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much. So at this time, are there questions from the board for staff? I see Commissioner Henson.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Can you go back to the slide that shows the wildlife access? Yeah, great. So that part up there that looks like a giant letter C, sort of, is that is that to accommodate? Is that for the raptor nests? What is that? Not the path. I'm sorry, above it. I was just trying to tell you what slide I wanted. You see the paths into the property that kind of look like a letter C a little bit.
Yeah, so those are natural drainage areas that the applicant kind of left open for those purposes. They worked with CPW and staff to kind of identify the best place given some of those natural drainage ways for that wildlife corridor and ended up with the one you see here outlined in red.
So those areas along the drainage actually are also open for wildlife, but obviously they need to use the corridor to get all the way across the property. Is that what?
Correct, and I'll let the applicant speak a little bit more. I think
Okay.
some are open, some have fencing up to the property line to avoid wildlife maybe getting trapped in there.
Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. And my other question is about the decommission plan. Does that mean at the end of this lease or this permit that they remove? What does that plan include? Like if the solar panels say in 30 years, we have such different technology that the panels are no longer usable or they come to the end of their life, what does that decommission plan entail?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll also let the applicant maybe speak to that a little bit more in depth.
Okay.
This conditional use permit would last 30 years. The applicant has expressed that they feel that the lifespan of this could be up to 70 years.
Okay.
So not necessarily at the end of this conditional use permit, but the end of life of the project. The county does have specific standards in our development standards and regulations that speak to the decommissioning plan, and the applicant has met those requirements as well as provided their own take on how they would accomplish that.
Well, did they ask for any variances to our decommission plan or any alterations to it?
They have not at this time, no.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's all I have for right now.
Any other commissioners? Not seeing any. Okay, so we have opportunity for the applicant to come down and make a presentation. And if you can just state your name and address for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Patrick Brecken. I live in Houston, Texas, 930 Deepwell in Houston, Texas. Commissioner Board, Case Manager Spade, thank you for the opportunity today to consider our project. And also thank you for serving. I myself am on City Council back in Houston. And I know this is difficult to make these decisions, and you have a lot of questions, please ask them. We're happy to answer them. We at Plenitude appreciate the opportunity to continue progress on the permitting of the Hanks Crossing project. My name is Patrick Brecken, and I am the Director of Development for Plenitude. Assisting me today is Jeremy Call from Logan Simpson, and I have Amy Sherman, Perry Patton, and Jacob Salomonsky from Tetra Tech to help me with they're more of the environmental experts. So, get the slide. Oh, the mouse on there. Oh, there we go. All right. So, who is Plenitude, of course? So, we have actually been a part of this Hanks Crossing project from the beginning. I know you have seen Novus Renewables in there before. As of December, Plenitude has acquired 100% of the project, so we will be pushing it forward. We are an international operator. Plenitude is part of Eni Petroleum. That's an Italian company out of Europe. To date, we have 4 gigawatts of installed renewable capacity across the world. We have about 1.7 gigawatts that we have installed in the U.S., and currently we operate about 300 megawatts down in Texas. We have a clear commitment to increase our capacity fourfold by 2030, and the Hanks Crossing project is key to us reaching that capacity. So with that, I will hand it over to Jeremy to provide some information about the project.
Thank you, Commissioners, and good morning. Appreciate the opportunity to present to you. My name is Jeremy Call with Logan Simpson in Fort Collins, and I'll briefly outline the project steps that we've taken to ensure responsible development. What makes this project very unique is that out of over 1,000 proposals that Excel received, they selected this project as one of only 20 to move forward with as part of their 2021 Clean Energy Plan. The project is designed to bring high-skilled jobs and significant economic benefits to Adams County, to align with your planning goals and in a way that requires minimal public services. And most importantly, it will help meet the growing demand for clean renewable energy. The project is located in eastern Adams County, 13 miles northeast of the town of Byers, accessed along Hanks Crossing Road and 5 miles north of Highway 36. That means that it's out of sight and out of mind for all of the major roads and neighborhoods in Adams County. The project parcels consist of 2,659 acres, of which 2,200 will be utilized for solar facilities. The remaining acreage that's not utilized will be used for wildlife corridors, setbacks, mineral set-asides, and to maintain the natural waterways. The project is located adjacent to the existing transmission line, and it would have 355 megawatts of solar facilities combined with 178 megawatt battery energy storage system. We've selected this site specifically because it has several favorable factors which make it ideal for a solar facility. First of which is that it aligns with your land use vision and advances the county's comprehensive plan. It's located in a future land use and zoning district that's compatible with the conditional use permit. The next is we have very supportive landowners, two of which are here to speak in favor with you today. A third provided a letter of recommendation along with Excel Energy's letter of recommendation. Third, the project site is in a rural and relatively remote area, very, very few neighbors. The project site is surrounded by 320 to 640 acre parcels. We notified out 2 miles in all directions. The closest resident is 3 miles from the project. Okay. Fourth, as you can see on screen, and if you're able to see the mouse, see the green transmission line that borders the property on all sides. By placing the substation to the north, it allows us to interconnect to that transmission line without requiring an additional lengthy transmission build out, which would have impacts on other properties. Fifth, the site has a low probability of impacts to natural resources. It has already been modified by historic agriculture. It has limited biological diversity compared to other parts of the county. Sixth, the relatively flat site topography minimizes the amount of grading necessary. We can pile drive through the existing vegetation without having to do a lot of grading and erosion control. Lastly, changing this land from dryland to agriculture and rangeland to utility scale solar allows the county to generate significant revenue, allows the landowners to have a secondary source of farming income, and reduces the water use. You'll see that there's 2 integrated CUP applications in front of you. One for the large-scale solar facility, which is in gray here on the slide, which includes the arrays, the inverters, and the battery storage system. Second is the substation, or we call it a collector substation. That's where the power is collected from the system and then is transferred to a second utility substation that's shown in blue. That second utility substation will be permitted, developed, owned, and operated by Public Service Company of Wyoming. Okay? And their substation is not included in this application. They will come and permit it independently. You'll see on the small map that if the site that we've identified for the utility substation is unsatisfactory, we've identified an alternate location immediately to the west. This solar facility at this scale will bring significant economic opportunities to Adams County, larger than any prior project that you've received. And it does that in a way that that requires very few public services or has offsite impacts within the county. Some of these benefits include $64 million in cumulative property taxes paid to the county over the life of the project. In addition, we'll have property taxes paid to the Byers School District, the Byers Fire District, and other special districts. It provides clean, renewable energy. It stabilizes the grid and helps promote your energy independence. And lastly, it spurs the creation of jobs, skilled workforce, and transferable knowledge for other local businesses here in the area. We've worked hard to complete a number of environmental studies and plans to ensure that the project is developed in a way that minimizes and mitigates impacts. I'll call out just a few on the left-hand side of the screen. As Commissioner Henson asked, we have a preliminary decommissioning plan that's been developed. It outlines the responsibilities, the timelines for how to decommission the project successfully and to restore the property reasonably. We've also prepared a vegetation management plan that will ensure that the weeds that sometimes encroach on property when agriculture is discontinued will be minimized, and we'll be able to reconstruct a shortgrass prairie and increase the number of pollinators on the property. Third, you'll see that we have a wetland delineations, wildlife habitat characterizations, and a cultural resource support to be able to avoid impacts to these sensitive resources. On the right-hand side, you'll see that we're committed to completing all the following projects for a scale of this size, chief of which is the emergency response plan. It outlines all of the potential hazards, emergency situations, and emergency personnel needed to reduce the risk of wildfire or address any other emergencies on site. We will work closely with Byers Fire District. You may have seen their letter to us, and we've addressed their concerns. We will have on-site trainings with them and help them commission the project with us. Okay. And we've been working closely with Public Works to dedicate the right-of-way along Hanks Crossing Road, as well as any other road use maintenance agreements that might be needed to support the project. So in addition to the wildlife surveys that have been completed, we have conducted coordination with Colorado Parks and Wildlife and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to obtain their site-specific recommendations. We've incorporated that wildlife corridor along the natural drainage to facilitate movement of big game. I'll go back just a few slides to answer Commissioner Henson's question. These white areas that you see on the map are the natural drainages that we don't want to build in. We don't want to build in areas that are a little steeper. So those areas are intended to be fenced off. They create a dead end, and we don't intend to entrap any wildlife. The wildlife corridor that crosses through the project includes prairie dog colony, raptor nest, and follows a natural drainage, which makes it a logical way for animals to continue to move through the site today. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Also on this slide, you'll see that we have a floodplain on the west side. That's part of your natural resource conservation overlay, and we've cited the project to avoid that entirely, so we'll fence out from that. Okay, coming back down to where I was left off, the lack of significant and unique wildlife habitat, combined with our proposed mitigation measures, means that this facility will not result in any significant conflicts with federal or state listed species or state sensitive species of conservation concern. One of the key county assets is Hanks Crossing Road, an unpaved route, and we would need to use 5 miles of that from State Highway 36 to be able to access the property. We prepared a trip generation analysis. It demonstrated that traffic will increase during construction, that those impacts will be quite substantial, but they will be short-term, and after construction is completed, there will be 2 to 3 on-site personnel who will come to the site daily and monitor it. We anticipate less than 20 vehicle trips per day. And again, we are ready to enter into a road use maintenance agreement if necessary for the construction phase. Grateful to have the support of the landowners, and we've used a number of different efforts to reach the community in a way that fosters transparency and addresses stakeholder concerns, and we remain committed to regular and ongoing consultation throughout the project's life. This project is designed to protect the health, safety, and welfare of Adams County residents. Unlike fossil fuel generation projects, This will not generate excessive traffic, vibration, dust, glare, heat, smoke, fumes, gas, odors, nighttime disturbances. It's a dark, like a dark sky facility, and the modules are designed to absorb rather than reflect sunlight. We expect that there are still going to be some nuisances to adjacent neighbors. There, with a project of this size, there will be dust. There's potential for weeds, and our application includes commitments to make sure that those are minimized to the extent possible to the adjacent farming families. Unique to this project as well, and not seen in other parts of the county, is a battery energy storage system. It discharges the energy later when the electricity is needed, such as when the sun goes down. It's a tier 1 battery storage system, which means in the solar industry that this is a high quality bankable system manufactured by top tier companies with a proven track record of reliability, safety, and performance. They will likely use lithium ion battery cells which will be housed in a climate controlled enclosure to maintain operating temperatures. It will be controlled and monitored by trained technicians 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the system will be shut down if excess heat is detected beyond the allowable limits. The battery storage system on the site plan is surrounded by a graveled area of 10 acres with the containers separated from one another to be able to minimize any type of off-site wildfire. And with that, we're grateful for your interest, and we look forward to working in partnership with the County Commission and the staff to make this a success for the community. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. Thank you so much. Questions from the board. Commissioner O'Dorisio, then Henson, then Mollica.
I couldn't understand what you were saying when you're saying something about. Can you go back to the weeds discussion?
Yeah. I think I was simply making the point that in a project of this side, there will be dust, there will be weeds, and about 40% of the property is used for dryland agriculture right now. When that converts to a shortgrass prairie, we'll be fighting with Russian thistle and other weed species common to this area. We're committed to reconstructing that shortgrass prairie so that it can be a sustaining type of plant community over the life of the project.
Okay, so in these situations, the weeds are. You also mentioned something about agriculture, like so for pollinators and.
Yeah, that shortgrass prairie. So right now it's a monoculture on the property, and in our intent to make it a shortgrass prairie again, which is found in some of the creek bottoms, areas that weren't cultivated for agriculture. It's been about 130 years since shortgrass prairie was here. By restoring that, it increases the biodiversity on the site by 300%, and it would improve the number of pollinators that are on the site because wheat doesn't serve as a significant pollinator.
Right. So you'll be able to. The reason I'm asking is because I am worried about the weeds. Have we thought about? Did you do any exploration of maybe using the agrivoltaic?
We have, yeah. So it's very popular right now, and the state does offer a tax incentive for us to use agrivoltaic. So there's lots of reasons for us to do that. We found so far that in the vegetation management plan, the soils are quite sandy and might be subject to disturbance. The most likely type of agrivoltaics would be sheep grazing. Sometimes the sheep, because they pull up sometimes the full plant, including the roots, it makes it difficult to maintain a functional vegetation cover. And so we want to first make sure that we've stabilized the site and reduced weeds. And then if it's possible to bring in sheep to graze, then we'll certainly do that. E&I Plenitude uses sheep on many of their facilities, so they're very familiar with that. They typically use it in places where the natural vegetation grows with precipitation high enough that it needs to be mowed. Here we expect the shortgrass prairie won't need to be mowed or controlled in the way that the sheep are needed in other areas where the grass or shrubs grow up and begin to screen the panels.
Okay, so you are going to raise the panels or not?
We're going to, the panels will be about 4 feet from the bottom of the terrain up to about a height of 10 feet. And so we won't be raising the panels to accommodate a sheep or cattle.
Okay. So will that forgo the ability to do agrivoltaic?
We can still use sheep at the current panel size. And the question is simply the stability of the vegetation to be able to accommodate the impact that sheep have on a stable vegetative cover.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I got confused because you said that
Mhm.
there'll be enough for the sheep, but then I thought earlier you said it wouldn't allow for sheep.
No, it's the concerns about the soil quality and the vegetation, maintaining those that would have initially required us to study sheep more before we implement that. And I'd be happy to have Patrick come up and explain that further if you might find that useful.
Sort of the fear behind that, if you bring in sheep with the way the soil is, are they going to eat up all the grass and just leave us all dirt?
Yeah, I get
And
it.
so that's my fear, is that all of a sudden I've got all dirt and dust everywhere. Whereas if we kept the short prairie, short grass, which we know will stay, we can try to mitigate. We don't want a dust bowl there. No one does.
Yeah, the confusion for me was when I asked it. It says, yes, we might bring sheep. And then now I'm hearing, no, it's going to be high enough for not to have sheep and cattle, but then we're going to be able to have sheep. I'm so confused.
No, it'll be high enough for sheep. It's not going to be high enough for cattle. So we're not going to raise the panels per se, but that is high enough for sheep.
And you're saying that there cannot be any sort of other source of agriculture that can be there.
As in, what would you
That's what
recommend?
I'm asking.
No, I mean, normally we would just do sheep, or you would do some sort of grass to keep it from dust, and we'd have to go mow it every time. So the reason we usually bring sheep in is so that we don't have to mow. Whereas if you were going to use a short grass prairie, I don't necessarily have to bring in sheep because it's not going to grow tall enough to where I have to mow it.
And then I got confused on the weeds. You said there will be weeds, but we're going to not have weeds. So that's why I'm confused on that too.
We're going to do our darndest to not have weeds. Right? Whenever you discontinue agriculture, the weeds just come right in, and so the vegetation management plan is designed to minimize that with a combination of natural techniques as well as herbicides to be able to maintain.
I'm having a real hard time hearing you. I am so sorry.
No, it's all right. So I'm soft-spoken. It's great for my marriage. It's really bad for public hearings. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll try to hold a little closer. Yep. So weeds are a risk, and the surrounding farming families don't want to see weeds spilling over, and so we make a commitment to monitor and manage all of the weeds on our property. And in that conversion from dryland ag to a native shortgrass prairie, there'll be a point the first 3 years. We'll have to pay special attention to that, but we're committed to minimizing the weeds on the property.
Got it. Thank you. And then my question will go to staff: is how do we enforce that?
Is there something you would like personally to see? I guess like a recommendation.
I'm always listen. I love this type of project, so I'm going to support it. What I'm concerned about is the impact to agriculture when we move agricultural lands, and so agrivoltaic is an opportunity to do it more than just sheep. I mean, there are some applications that do allow agriculture as far as plants and food to be still produced outside of just livestock. That's one question that I was asking. The next one, of course, is the impact to the surrounding communities, protection of a piece of property becoming a weed patch, and then impacting the surrounding community. We're in a spot right now in Adams County and across the state of Colorado where agriculture community and the rural community feels a little bit less than supported, and I'm trying to make sure that we're asking all the right questions. I do love these projects, don't get me wrong, but I'm also making sure that the other stakeholders that are engaged in the community know that we do care. We're asking the right questions, that we do try to protect them, because a lot of the criticisms that we get on these types of projects, I think, are kind of over exaggerated, but the ones that do make sense for us to ask questions are the impact to ag.
But my question to you would be, and this could be on the wrong side, is that would you be encouraging the use of like pesticides to get rid of the weeds, or no? See, that's sort of the question, is like, we're open to working with you, definitely to mitigate this issue. It's just we're trying to figure out what the best
Totally
option
get it.
is.
That's why I'm asking the same questions. Is how do we ensure to protect the neighbors?
Because I don't think most people don't want pesticides, so I just
Yeah. Any additional questions, Commissioner?
No, the question's now for staff.
You have a question for staff?
Yeah, how are we going to enforce the weed issue?
So I think as the applicant has clarified, this is dry land farming, right? So it's not irrigated. The choice of going with short grass prairie restoration is really because it's not going to get tall, right? It's stabilizing soil. So our regulations are really focused around height of weeds and making sure that that remains mowed. And what they're saying is what they're going to be installing, right, essentially, or restoring, will not create that problem of high weeds. So,
Yeah. We've also received a letter from the Swale Conservation District, and we'd be happy to have inspections as needed during the first 3 years to make sure that weeds are minimized.
I'll let other folks ask some questions, and I may come back to that.
Okay, so I have Commissioner Henson, Mollica, then Pinter.
Thank you. Yes, Commissioner Odorizio hit on several of my questions. I do have a question about water usage. Does a project like this require water usage?
So, I mean, the panels do need to be cleaned about twice a year, so they'll come in. Now, whether right now all of those wells are designated as agricultural use, so we would have to go get permitting to use them for that. If we can't get the permitting for that, then we have to truck in water.
So we don't know, but the permit would come to us, or how would that? I mean, so do we? So do we know what we're agreeing to in terms of potential water usage? I guess that's kind of for staff.
Good morning, Commissioner. Jen Rutter, Planning and Development Manager. We did not evaluate water usage for solar energy facilities. It's not a high water usage type of use. It sounds like the applicant may need some water, but that's not something that we evaluated at this application.
Okay, and then you say they require cleaning approximately twice a year?
Yes, and so like I said, we know that we have to go. We're going to try to get the permits from the state, but if they don't grant them, we still have the option of trucking in water to do the job as well.
Do you have an estimate of how many gallons it would take to do one round of cleaning?
Not off the top of my head. I
Okay.
could get it.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious if that had been
You said you had a
discussed.
graphic.
If I could, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Here we go. So what this graphic shows, and this was press the button. There we go. What this briefly shows is compared to irrigated agriculture, which is the top red bar, and solar at the bottom during the operational phase, we would utilize about 0.01 acre feet for the cleaning annually. So it's even less than the one residential house that's on the property, Mr. Holden's current residence on the property. So now this is for utility scale solar type projects.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you. I didn't remember that slide, so thank you for answering that question. And I also had questions about agrivoltaic use. So you're saying the soil there is very sandy, so you're not sure what crops could be potentially grown, or that's not something. So you're not you have looked into that, or you are not looking into that.
We're not planning to continue growing crops inside of the fence.
Okay, and should the weeds, appear to be becoming an issue, you are going to potentially use sheep, or you're not going to consider that at all?
As of this phase, it can definitely be a consideration. Either way, the weeds would have to be cut down. I don't have any issue using sheep.
Well, I guess my other question is, or because obviously I wouldn't prefer personally pesticides be used in the area because there are still agricultural uses happening surrounding that, or is it something that you would just have them mowed on a regular basis to try to keep them down? I mean that doesn't necessarily stop them from spreading. It cuts them down, but it doesn't necessarily stop the spread.
Well, if you do consistent mowing should help mitigate the weeds.
Okay.
But as I was asking, I was like, I mean, if you'd like me to say pesticides, I will, but I'm not suggesting use pesticides. That's up to y'all. I don't have to use pesticides. We have plenty of different options, and we're willing to work with the commission of how you'd like to take care of it, is basically my answer. That's not really a deal breaker for me.
Okay, thank you. And then the 500 temporary jobs, what would be the time range of how long would those jobs exist?
So your construction phase is between 18 to 24 months. So current COD they have on there was Q1 of 2027. And so right now the milestones we have are permission from this board and then I have to, once I have permission to this, I take it over to Excel, and then I get Excel's interconnection. And as soon as that is done, we are ready to basically start construction. Right now on the phase, they're saying Q3 of 2025, which is this year, but honestly, I would say it'd be pushed back 3 or 4 months. But we'll see. I have to wait and hear back what Excel says, because Excel is the ultimate, I guess, date setter, because they're the ones that puts it on their grid.
Sure.
So they're going to give me a date and say, this is the date we want. But generally speaking, our construction is going to be between 18 and 24 months. I'm hoping for 18. The shorter the amount of time, the better it is.
And do you, excuse me, that's, yeah, I get that. I was also going to ask if you, are those jobs generally can you hire local residents for that? Here in Adams County?
No,
or is
absolutely.
that a specialty, or are there some skills that you need a specialty
So
workforce?
generally speaking, when the contractors come in here, they're higher ups, like their master electricians. If that skill is not available here, then obviously they're going to have to bring him in from outside. But to meet the ITC and get the credits, they have to follow an apprenticeship program with prevailing wages. So your apprenticeship program is going to be all locals. And so hopefully your locals can go through the apprenticeship program, then they can get their electrician's license, and then hopefully eventually become a master electrician where they can develop and build their own facilities.
Okay, good. That's I appreciate that. And then once the construction phase is over, how many full-time jobs will result ongoing as the years tick by?
So we do have a director of development that will be. He's not going to be in your county. I don't know if he's in your county or not. He is from Denver.
Okay.
So he will be running the project, and he will be there full time. But like you mentioned, we'll have every day is 2 to 3 maintenance guys or 2 to 3 site guys that go out there. You're also going to have the companies that come and wash twice a year. And so that is actually quite a bit of a labor pool. To wash every single panel is quite a feat. And obviously we're going to be choosing local companies for that, because I'm not going to truck in people from somewhere else.
So generally, on average,
work.
we're talking about 4, on an average day, a couple of years in, we're talking about like maybe 4 people on site.
You're going to have
average.
4 highly skilled technicians on site for sure. And then we'll have more of the unskilled labor for the washing and the maintenance of the whole facility, the weeds, how we take care of that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Those are all the questions I have right now.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Mollica?
Yes, thank you so much. So there have already been lots of questions already asked and answered. So I'm going to move on to some others on my list. I was curious about the life cycle of the panels that you're looking to install. Are these like 30-year life cycles, or do you have an idea of what they are yet?
Originally we asked for 40 years and we were denied. So now we're down to 30 years, which is fine. So truly towards the end of this project, towards the end of our permits, we will be asking for an extension. The life cycle of the panels really depends on the technology.
Okay.
So technology is increasing, it's getting better every year.
Yeah.
So at that time, generally speaking right now, you're getting 50 years out of your panels.
Okay.
But that could, if we have some awesome panel that comes out that's just amazing, it takes up half the space, and financially it makes sense to do a repanel, we may come 20 years in and repanel because it's financially better to do it. I can't answer that question because I don't know how technology is going to change in 20 years.
Yeah.
But I do know that technology is just getting better, so hopefully we can create more power on a smaller footprint.
Okay.
But generally speaking, the panels we put in, yes, we would love to come back to you at 30 years and hopefully you can extend it. If not, we understand, and it is what it is. So.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess my question to staff then is, for repaneling purposes, so say I'm gonna guess things are gonna get a lot better here. In 30 years, we're gonna probably face a repaneling situation. Do they need to come back to us if repaneling is something that they choose to do? I'm just curious about that process.
Sure. So staff is recommending approval of this permit for 30 years.
Okay.
The applicant for an extension would need to come back either for an amendment to this permit or a new permit. It's really the same process either way. So they would come back to you. There would be building permits associated with changing out the panels as well. So there'd be a structural review from the building permit process, but then also a land use review 30 years from now for an extension of this use on this property.
Okay, so just to clarify, if they repanel in 10 years, this is going to come back? It's not going to come back?
It would not. No.
Okay.
There would be a building permit review at that time.
A building permit review. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, that's fantastic. And then, so what does disposal look like? So if we are repaneling, what do we do with the old panels? How does the site decommission? Like, how do you guys do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So like, say you're repaneling or even decommissioning. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously they're gonna come down, take every panel, and they're gonna truck them out, and they'll go to a recycling facility. So
Okay.
like all the metals in there, they pull all the metals out, and then the rest they'll dispose of. But
Okay.
none of that's done on site. All they're gonna do is take the panels off, put them on a truck,
Mhm.
and take them away. Now for your decommissioning, we'll go through and we're gonna pull all the pilings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so all your metal's going to come out of the ground, and then all the cables get pulled out. Now, what was the discussion about the 3 feet?
We would leave anything that's deeper than 3 feet below ground, any footings, for example, for the substation, and that's because we tend to create more harm than good when we try to dig down 3 feet to pull stuff out. So most of the wiring can be pulled out that's buried underground at say 16 inches or so.
So that's what we standard do, and that's what was provided to you. So then after everything's pulled, then we would go back, and it would be basically the reclamation where we would try to bring natural plants back.
Awesome. Okay. So, and then I guess my next question for staff is, say something happens with the company, they go under, what happens to the panels? Like, I'm thinking of like an orphan well type situation, right? Like, what if we get stuck with all these panels on this lot because the company can't come and clean it up? Like, how do we manage that as a county? Not saying you guys are going under, but I know there's great things, great futures ahead, but I was just kind of curious how that works.
So at this point, our code does not contain provisions for something like a surety bond to be held for that purpose, which is what we do for orphan well situations. It's certainly a topic that we can revisit in the DSO process, but it has, as of today, has not been a situation we've encountered.
Okay, as of this today, we don't have any process for something like that. Okay, all right, thank you. That's my questions for now.
May I comment on that?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Oh, no. I mean, generally speaking, for like landowners, when we give them a lease, there is like a performance bond that's put up for the decommission.
Oh, okay.
So, but I was talking to Jeremy about this, that we would be the landowners. So the question would be, and I'm throwing this to you as like a free bone, is that you should discuss that and make sure that there's a performance bond put up for the decommission.
Thank you.
That protects you.
I appreciate that. Yeah, because it protects the county. Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Commissioner Pinter.
Most of my questions have been asked and answered. I thank you for your detailed responses. I am curious with a few outstanding questions. I think my colleague Steve, you have one for staff that's still outstanding, but thank you for your presentation and the thoughtful way you put this together. As I understand it, you're proposing short native grasses that don't require watering or maintenance by mowing and or sheep, and that the process should be self-sustaining and moving forward.
That's what we'd hope for, yes.
Great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. So thank you so much. Oh, Commissioner Odricio.
Yeah, I appreciate it. You guys have been outstanding in answering these questions, and as we get into the weeds, just waiting for that. I do want to. If we were to, there's three things that I want to find out. First of all, thank you for answering these questions. Number one is, if we were to add a condition that says upon decommissioning, they will use the best means of recycling available at the time. That would be something I would be willing to do. Now, is that a moving target? Of course, but you could also determine at the time that it would be something that would be worked out with the county at the time. whether it's 10 years, 20 years, whatever. I think that's only fair to ask. The reason I ask is because there are situations that we hear about where things are just getting either abandoned in place or tossed into a landfill with some materials that really could have been recycled. So I would be open for a condition that you guys would be acceptable with, obviously. If we could maybe take a break after these questions, if I have support for that request, or if you saying that you wouldn't mind taking 5 minutes to have that conversation. The second one would be the bond. I really appreciate you talking about that because it really does clarify, because we've had such a horrible experience with oil and gas and orphan wells. I will tell you, many of today's problems were yesterday's solutions, and many of today's solutions could become tomorrow's problems. And so it's up to us to make sure that we're thinking in systems thinking manner to look at those types of scenarios and to maybe say, yes, you're going to have a surety or a performance bond with yourself, but maybe we could also identify, and this is going to be a legal question, could we identify the county as a potential third-party beneficiary if we needed to somehow? But of course, if somebody's bankrupt, you can't squeeze blood from a turnip. So if you have an idea on how we can protect the land, even if you're gone, then I'm open for that idea.
The bond is not through us; it's through a third party. Yeah. So the money's there. It's not. If
right.
we go, we're gone. You still got the money from the bond.
So that would include us as the beneficiary to be able to go. That's perfect. And that could be. Is that in a condition? Because I don't know if I saw that as a condition. But if we could add that as a condition, that would be great. Because then when we're gone in 10, 20, 30 years, I don't know if I'll even be here. Hopefully, I mean, no. I'm just saying that would be something for us to discuss. And then the final one would be the weeds. I really do appreciate you saying, look, tell me what you want. Like, you want and I just want us to, and it might be something that we have to look at, is how do we make sure it doesn't become a nuisance for the properties around? And I'm talking beyond the 3 years. How do we maybe have something that says there shall be a weeds management plan that is enforceable throughout the entire time? That's what I would ask. And it's not about height. In this case, it would be about the propagation or the spreading. So those are 3 potentials that I know that you're thinking about. I'm like, oh,
I'm going to say, I mean, we could commit to getting a consultant to figure out what we need to do. I'm just not the expert on it.
I totally agree. And that would be something where we could be submitting. Sometimes we say, like, submit a transportation plan to the staff, submit something to their approval, and it doesn't have to come back in front of us. So I'd be okay with those 3 things. And I would love to recycling, the bond, and the weed kind of management plan that would be submitted to staff as conditions.
Thank you, Commissioner. I have Commissioner Pinter.
Thank you. I actually don't feel really comfortable with most of those conditions, and here's where I'm at, because I think that we have weed management protocols in place for any property in Adams County. I'm seeing nods from our staff, and we can talk about that, about what that looks like. And the materials that they talked about leaving behind once the photovoltaic removed sound very standard issue, non-contaminated, non-toxic pieces of cement and or steel in the ground like you'd find with any building. This is not something that's going to spill. This is not something that's going to leach. This is not something that can, if the photovoltaics are managed through the bond as previously presented, then there is nothing on the property. It's inert material of cement and steel. And so I'm just real confused about why we're spending this much time on this topic. And so I think we have weed management protocols. We can certainly beef them up, but they would be subject to complying with any other building weed management protocols in the unincorporated areas of Adams County. And if we want to have that conversation, we should have that conversation. But they do nothing that is special or different that would require different weed management protocols than any other property in the county. And the materials left behind once the photovoltaics are removed and recycled or replaced is inert and nothing different than any other building, and in fact might be less toxic than a home or something else that contains a variety of materials when they're planning to leave behind just steel and cement. So I'm real confused about this line of questioning. I don't think a lot of this is necessary, and I see a product that we have approved many, many, many times before that is not unique or different than other buildings that we approve, that doesn't generate noise, that doesn't generate pollution, that is very quiet and respectful to neighbors, with low water, low maintenance, native grasses intended to be planted, that complies with every other building standard we have. And I'm real confused about the depth of questions that are going on. And so I hear you asking questions, and you have every right to ask questions, and we should get some answers from staff about your questions, but I'm not comfortable with the additional conditions that are being proposed. That's where I'm at.
Okay, I have Commissioner Odoricio and Mullica, as long as it's a question and not a debate between the commissioners. Please go ahead.
I mean, this is part of deliberation, so we are.
Actually, commissioner discussion is after we hear from the public.
So then I guess in the form of a question, the issue of recycling is something that you guys are already committed to. And if it's not a problem and it does provide some assurances that when the fine people in front of us are not in front of us and that there is decommissioning, to say that it shall be recycled as best means possible, I don't see that as an unreasonable condition. Number two, the bond, you already said it exists. And if we could clarify where the beneficiary of that bond, as you say, would already be there. So I'm not asking anything other than just simply put what you already said would be a protection against the issue that was brought up earlier into a condition. And then the third one, if there's going to be weed mitigation, what I understood was that if we, and I could ask staff this, is the weed mitigation that I heard from staff was that it's based on height, not based on, spreading. It's more of a vertical regulation rather than a horizontal spreading. And so if we could, and we have in many situations asked for some sort of like weed type of mitigation or landscaping type plan in a lot of situations. This is not in any way as an anti-solar thing. In fact, these are all issues that are coming up now over the years that we're starting to hear about, that had we known 5 and 10 years ago, we probably would have added. So nothing is anything that I've asked sound like it's out of bounds to you first, and then we'll go to staff with the.
I mean, we're committed to helping you develop this project. I mean, the terminology saying recycling as best as you can, I mean, that gives me options. So that's not really out of bounds per se. The only one I could question as to how you would define it is how we would do the weeds.
Right.
I mean, the performance bond, the reason I brought it up is because typically when we build a site, I usually have an agreement with the landowner as a lease, whereas in this case, it's a purchase because PSCCo wants to put all their facilities on there too. And as a purchase, I would become the landowner. So then I'm, controlling myself. Well, if I go under, it's whereas if it was a lease with another landowner, I have that third party bond. So that's why I mentioned that.
There is a bond
on it when I lease. Yes,
yeah.
there is a bond.
Not in this.
In a situation where I'm purchasing, I'm the owner, so I would be putting a bond on myself. So I don't. Why would we do that as a company? To be honest, I'm just being honest with you. Why would I do it as a company? Whereas if you said we have to do it, then of course we're going to do it, right? So
and that would be it in case you go, you're not.
Exactly. That
right.
The whole purpose of the bond is if we go under and the site's there and nobody's got money to get rid of it. So
yeah, it would be to avoid the oil and gas situation that we're in. Yep. Thank you.
That's correct. Thank you, Commissioner Mullica.
No further questions. I will wait till deliberation.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. You can have a seat. Appreciate your presentation.
Thank you.
And answering the questions from the board. So at this time, we'll take public comment. So Erica, you have anyone signed up for public comment?
We have Raymond and Donna Morris signed up to speak.
Okay. Good morning. If you can please state your name and address for the record.
Raymond Morris, 3305 Barons Road, Byers, Colorado. Thank you for the opportunity, commissioners. I'm Raymond Morris, and my wife Donna and I own a large portion of the land that we're the current owners of the proposed Hanks Crossing project site. I've been involved in farming and ranching in that area for most of my life. We live in Adams County, about 6 miles northeast of Byers at the present time, so we're out between Byers and the project site. Some of my ancestors have lived and worked in eastern Colorado since 1860. They began ranching in the immediate area in about 1880. I've owned much of the land that we're talking about for about 50 years. Two of the sections were 1870 Kansas Pacific land grant sections that were purchased from Union Pacific by my maternal grandfather in 1899. Therefore, my family has been involved in this land for almost all of its agricultural history since the open range era. We do support the project. Studies and negotiations have been going on for several years now. We've found Plenitude and their predecessor in the project, Novus Renewables, to be fair and open throughout the process. And we believe that the Hanks Crossing Energy Project will benefit many more people than we could with agricultural production on this land. Therefore, we strongly support the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morris. Appreciate it. Erica?
That was everyone that indicated they wanted to speak on this case.
All right. Okay, and now we're at, I don't see a need for the applicant response to public comment. So we're down to commissioner discussion.
Chair, did we have open questions, I believe, from Commissioner Odorizio to staff, or were they all answered?
Let me clarify some of the questions. In other situations, we have some sort of landscaping and other management plans that we say, can you submit, whether it be like a transportation or traffic study or plan that this is somewhat open-ended when it comes to the management and the maintenance of making sure weeds are not impacting neighborhoods. So, I mean, the neighboring parcels, particularly the ag next doors. How could we use that same sort of approach in a reasonable manner that allows you guys to work with the applicant that still addresses the issue? So in 25 years from now, if weeds are an issue, something can be done about it. Because it's my understanding you told us that the height is what we restrict currently under current code. So I'm taking it out of the code, depending on the code enforcement, and putting it into an agreement enforcement.
Sure. So our regulations actually prohibit any weeds at all on any property. So that would be a violation that could be issued to any property owner. And there is a definition. It's based on, I believe, the state of Colorado that determines the type of weed. But if you would like to have the applicant submit a weed management plan, which I think is what you were alluding to, that would be something that we could add as a condition precedent if you were interested.
If you think that there would be a reasonable way to do that, I think that makes sense to protect in the long term. But what we were told earlier, I thought, was that it was only based on height. You're saying it's the existence of weeds could be an actionable issue regardless of height. And if that's the case, then maybe we don't need a weed management plan, but I prefer a weed management plan that would be something that could at least show that we are considering how to protect neighbors in the long term.
Sure. So our regulations under section 4-20, it is the duty of every owner or occupant to abate weeds and offending vegetation on all premises. The definition of a weed is any underbrush, brush, shrub, or plant material greater than 9 inches in height. So it is based on height. In some ways, it ordinarily grows without cultivation, not in planting beds or otherwise in controlled manner, not for the purpose of food production, not allowed and grown in such a manner or extent that it causes or likely to cause a public hazard or nuisance, or is unacceptably offensive in light of community standards of cleanliness or generally accepted neighborhood aesthetics. So there's actually a pretty broad definition, and then later on, it does discuss noxious weeds as defined by the state of Colorado.
I'm not sure a weed management plan is necessary as long as we have those in place. So I would withdraw that request. And then as far as recycling and the bond, knowing that there is no bond currently required, like how would we try to protect the land if something happens where all of a sudden they would go bankrupt, they walk away, and all of a sudden now we've got a situation where we have maybe abandoned panels and everything else.
Sure. So I think, and I think this is a unique situation. Sorry, Chase Evans, Deputy Director for Community and Economic Development. So I think this is obviously a little bit of a unique situation where the applicant is also the owner of the land. So in the sort of worst case scenario that the company were to go bankrupt, I think it's important to remember that there is still a lot of inherent value in this parcel of land, and so there would be a large formal bankruptcy proceeding. The cost or any sort of cost or need to remediate the land, remove the poles, recycle the panels, that's going to be reflected in the ultimate future purchase price of that land. I think it's easy to say that the value of the land greatly outweighs the cost of what this future remediation would likely cost. So I think it's unlikely and unreasonable that the land would sit with these steel beams and pipes and things, forever. I think it's pretty likely that someone would want to come in and do something with the land.
Well, I mean, we say the same thing about big box stores, and if there's a bunch of steel and concrete and panels, that would probably prohibit or at least restrict people's ability to develop. So I'm concerned about that. Is there a way for us to do the bond and make us a third-party beneficiary or a conservator?
I think it's something that we could do. I think the hardest part for right now is coming with an estimate of what those remediation costs would be.
And maybe to expand on that, part of why we have the surety bond process relative to oil and gas is those are typically they're mineral leases, right? So to the applicant's point about this being a unique condition because they own the land, we're not really set up with an obvious mechanism. They do not have a bond on it now. What he's saying is if they were leasing it, right, they would have a bond where it would be quite easy to have the county named as a third-party beneficiary. I think in moving forward with our DSO updates, it's an excellent point to bring up, and it's a good thing for us to look at in that. It doesn't necessarily apply to this situation in front of you today simply because they do own the land.
Okay. I mean, it does apply if they go away, but it's not in our regs to require it right now. I understand what you're saying there. That's different. Then it's not potentially applicable. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. I have Commissioner Henson, then Mullica.
Thank you. Just a quick question for staff. I know this is in a low area of population right now, kind of isolated. The substation, what kind of fencing or aesthetic or any kind of, is it a wall, a fence, or if something that kind of shields it from in 30 years, this area could look, it's safe to say, we'll have increased population based on our projected growth here in Adams County. So I'm just curious about safety and aesthetics surrounding that substation.
Yes, so they do have a fence proposed right now around not only the substation but the entire facility.
Okay. I'm assuming that's just chain link or something, or
I believe so.
Something comparable. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have for today. I'll have questions for future projects. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Mullica.
All right. Thank you so much. First of all, I want to say thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Morris for coming and sharing your beautiful story about your land. I loved it. It was really fantastic. And so that is actually one of the reasons why I want to continue to push for some type of bond of decommissioning or something for this land. If for worst case scenario that this company does go under, I would love to restore this land to its beautiful original quality, and having outdated solar panels and infrastructure just lingering there, probably some weeds too, Steve, on this plot of land to be abandoned really kind of breaks my heart. And so I would love to see that we could try and figure out some type of bond situation so that we could restore this property if worst case scenario that this company does go under. I feel like that is probably the best interest in the county. That's my opinion, but thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm going to hop in here real quick. And so I'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Morris for your story, for being such wonderful stewards of the land and livelihood, and being part of Eastern Adams County for such a long time. I think that that's really telling. We're coming up on an anniversary here in 2027, and I just would like the board to think about their story and including all portions of Adams County if we decide to move forward with an update to our current historical document. So I really appreciate your presence here today. And I agree with Commissioner Mullica. For that purpose, we have many heritage families here in Adams County. You have stuck with us through thick and thin and weather conditions. My grandfather was a vegetable farmer. Your land value has increased dramatically over the years, especially with the introduction of DIA, which is exactly why we're seeing the type of use on your land, which is to provide power for many, many generations to come. So thank you so much for being such wonderful stewards and residents of Adams County. I really appreciate it. I think there was a lot of good discussion today. Just regarding the weed management protocol and also the bond, if this is something the board wants to entertain at a future discussion, I think that that's something we should definitely take up and discuss. At this point, it's been taken off the table, but the weed management, we've never required, and I'd be really, well, the long-term use, I understand, I'd be very uncomfortable as many land use cases that we see during our terms, of singling this one out. So the county is 1,200 square miles. I can't throw a rock. I grew up in unincorporated Adams County, just northeast of this particular building, about 8 miles away. You can't throw a rock at any property in Adams County and not hit a weed. That's just the reality of being a prairie, flat prairie land here in Colorado. So I do appreciate the diligence that Commissioner O'Dorisio brought up, but I don't want to put anything additional stringent on this applicant. This is something that we want as a board, is for our land use process to be predictable for business and development. And I think staying true to that is that we need to take this back as a board and have that discussion rather than that being presented here as a topic this morning. But I think that it is a good discussion to have. I think all of us, I'll speak for myself, are feeling a little sunburned by oil and gas. And what does clean energy look like? What does that mean going forward? What is left behind? Depending on the day, Adams County, we're either number 1 or number 2 when it comes to abandoned orphan wells that the producer walked away. They become orphans of the state, and there's just not the funding. And is it really at that point the taxpayers footing that bill to improve air quality, plug these, there's damage to the land on oil spills. I don't see, they've been part of my life, my entire life, the public service energy company, Xcel Energy, going away anytime soon. I will take the confidence of our staff that a decommissioning process has been put in place. Of the standards that we know today, is that going to change? As Commissioner O'Dorisio said, the problems, the solutions for today might become the problems of tomorrow. Absolutely could be a true fact. But we're going to go on what we know today. I think that the bond performance issue, if that's something that the board would like to take up, I would look to our county attorney, Sally, to give us any direction on that. So Sally, do you have any, or Heidi, either one would be fine.
On the question of the bond, I think that is something we could look at in the future to put into our development standards and regulations, but we do not believe it is something that we can require today given the current status of our regulations.
Great, thank you, Heidi. Any other comments from the board? Commissioner O'Dorisio, then Mullica.
So the whole point of the bond, well, first of all, the weeds thing, I'm actually looking at 420. I want to thank you guys. 420 weed, that's interesting, but the section 420 of the weed, it is a lot more broad than I remember, so I appreciate it. It does include the nuisance and the public hazard, and I do believe that it would impact. So if there was an issue where it was impacting the neighbors, so I'm okay with that. I think we could look at it. I know we've done it in other cases, particularly wherever there's a big field, but we could look into that. The other part with the recycling, I am concerned about it because it's not going to be that hard of a condition to add, but I'm trying to protect the neighbors of ag and the long-term environment. And so that's what I would ask, is just to have a good faith condition on recycling. That was fairly open, by the way. And so I would like to get the appetite for the board on that. If also the applicant can find something that they would agree to on that, the recycling condition. And then the piece of the bond, while we can't require today, if there is an idea that the applicant has that would make it acceptable with, because I do believe you understood what our concern is on the long term, I would love to hear if they have an idea like what they think would be acceptable rather than us making it a requirement. So those are my comments.
Commissioner Mollica?
My questions are similar.
Okay.
Are we able to have the applicant come and respond to Commissioner Ordericio's questions?
Yes. I also have Commissioner Henson. So if you'd like to go next, and then we'll have the applicant come down to respond, just in case it's a similar question.
No, it's not a question.
Okay. Just a comment. If the applicant would please come forward and talk about the bond potential in recycling.
I can provide y'all the paperwork of the bonds we usually give for our leases. I mean, maybe your legal team can look it over and see if maybe you can adapt it to something you can use. I don't know personally of, I guess, like a public statute or rule that would force it. So I don't know in my head.
There is none. That's what we were told. It's not a requirement. The question is in good faith, if you had an idea of how we can meet the same requirements, and you could say right now, nope, if it's not required, no, and then we're stuck. But you seemed open to helping on that issue.
I mean, on that issue, it's not a big deal to me because we do it for our leases. So it's not a big deal. My question is how you would go about it. So I'm not really aware of that. I was just throwing it out there because I knew that we were owning the land. And so then the question falls on you, is that are you, and I hate to play devil's advocate, but are you going to force this on other projects? And so that's, like I said, I sit on city council too, so I get this thrown back and forth all the time. And I think that's a discussion you guys need to have and decide.
I was in the digital queue for quite a while and I keep getting skipped, so I'm just gonna wave my hand. So
okay.
It's totally fine.
Would you like to go now?
Sure. I feel like I heard a lawyer say we have no legal authority to require a bond. And if I misunderstood and we need to go in executive session, I'm happy to do so. But that's what I heard. I'm seeing nodding. So I appreciate this conversation. I hope you're a good steward. I hope that you remediate your property and remove all items of hazard or value when you go to sell it at some point or refurbish it in 30 to 40 years. But that's where we're at, and that we don't have a legal authority to require a bond.
Great. Thank you to the applicant. Did you want the applicant to respond to recycling?
Just because we don't have the authority to require it, you do have the authority if you wanted to agree to it as a condition, whether it's required.
That is not what I heard from the attorneys.
Maybe we should do an executive session.
Okay.
Heidi?
If there's majority of the board that would like an executive session, it would be pursuant to Colorado Revised Statute 24.6 402(4)B for the purpose of receiving legal advice.
So moved.
Second.
Commissioner Odericio?
Yes.
Commissioner Mollica?
Yes.
Commissioner Henson?
Yes.
Commissioner Pinter?
Yes.
Commissioner Baca?
Yes. So we're going to start with 15 minutes to go into executive session, then we can come back out and update. Okay, the time is 11:49. We're going to go ahead and reconvene the land use portion of our meeting, and we were discussing the Hanks Crossing Energy Project. So, questions from commissioners. Commissioner Odoricio.
Thank you. I will, give me just a second. I appreciate everyone's time, and I appreciate the applicant coming forward. I acknowledge that on condition number 2 is the operator shall conform to the decommissioning plan as provided with the application. I'm trying to find that in the packet, and that was my challenge. Is that is it in there? Because it's listed as an appendix, and I think what I was doing when I was doing what I'm trying to explain is I don't know the details behind that decommissioning plan, and some of the concerns that I have might be included in that. But I do remember seeing it in prior cases like the Vega solar farm, and so that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is I'm not trying to create a lot of new precedent that's only focused on one applicant, but I do appreciate the applicant asking the question. Is if we're going to raise the bar here, make sure the bar stays raised for others, and that's how we've done it every time with other challenging. Well, this isn't that challenging, but like for other industries and other buildings. Yes.
Yeah. So. My apologies if that was not in there. Both applications for each conditional use permit totaled over 1,000 pages. So if it was not in there, that is my mistake. However, they do have specific language, and thank you for noting that it is a part of condition number 2. The specific language the applicant included in the decommissioning plan, according to waste disposal and recycling, is as follows. All demolition procedures will maximize the recycling of materials to the greatest extent possible. Non-hazardous waste will be collected and disposed of in a specific and appropriate waste areas. Hazardous waste will be disposed of according to applicable laws, ordinances, regulations, and standards. Demolition debris will be placed in temporary on-site storage areas prior to transport to an off-site recycling center.
That's perfect, actually. So I'm sorry to have wasted everyone's time going down that path. I just could not find the details in the packet. So my apologies for the time issue on that issue as far as the recycling. The weeds, I do believe after we got the 420, section 420 read, it does include nuisance to others. So, and as far as the bond, I still think it's important, but I'll have to look at the decommissioning plan later to see if it's something that can be consistently applied. So
We were good at apology.
I'm good. I'm saying I'm not good. But with that in mind, I would be happy to make a motion if we're ready.
Anything else from the board? Commissioner Henson?
I'll be brief. I just want to say I'm going to be supporting this project today. As you can tell, this is the largest solar. Well, this is my first solar project as a commissioner. I think this is one of the larger ones that's come before the board. As Adams County continues to grow, land use and decommissioning of infrastructure and things are top of mind for us, looking long term for the health and welfare of the residents who live in Adams County and the land that they live on and want to develop on. And so that is where all these questions came from today. And I'm happy to support the project. Thank you for being here in person, Mr. and Mrs. Morris. It was a pleasure to hear your story.
I would just like to add yes to Mr. and Mrs. Morris. You made our day today. We have a very long day ahead of us as well. You know, the board discussion is if we want to change the regulations in the future, that we do it at a given point, and we have several meetings in different formats that we can raise this question. I think for me, it is keeping this process predictable, that it's transparent, that it is direction that we give to our staff as they review applications. But this is something I think that was important to the board that we can absolutely take up for discussion in the future. I also will be supporting this project. So with that, Commissioner Odoricio, if you'd like to read the motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With that, I appreciate the project, and we can look forward to seeing it in fulfillment. And we will talk about how to get some of those details from all those appendices, 1,000 pages, up to the top, maybe, so we don't have to take this kind of time to discover it next time. So thank you. With that, I move to approve a conditional use permit for a large energy facility and utility substation, PRC 2024-4, with 16 findings of fact, 6 conditions, and 1 no.
Second.
And the motion passes 5-0. So thank you for the applicant and thank you for staff for your presentations. Does staff need a minute to set up for the next one? You're good. Okay. Okay, Nick, if you want to go ahead and start us off.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, Commissioners. I think it's morning still, barely. Nick Eagleson, Community and Economic Development Department, and I'll be presenting the Conservation Services, Inc. Bennett Facility. This is case number EXG 2024-2, and this is located at 41800 East 88th Avenue. The request is for a certificate of designation, more specifically, a major amendment to an approved CD, and this is to extend the expiration of an asbestos and non-hazardous disposal facility. A little bit of background about this site and previous approvals. Current operations commenced on site through an approved CD. This was by the Board of County Commissioners in 1989. The County Commissioners approved an amendment to that CD in 1996, and at that time this enhanced the facility services and operations. And then the most recent approval from the County Commissioners was for a major amendment, again, to that existing CD, and this was in January of 2015, which is set to expire on June 29th of this year, 2025. So here's a large aerial view of where the site is located. East 88th Avenue is directly adjacent to the north. Pedersen Road, just for context, it's not built out adjacent to the west, but that is the vicinity that it's located. You can see Miller Road further west, Denver International out here, and then Colorado Air and Spaceport to the southwest. Here's a closer aerial view of the site. You can see the current operations out there. It's mostly utilizing right now the northern half of the overall site, taking access off of East 88th Avenue to the north. This is the East Regional Landfill, located directly adjacent to the south, and then it's mostly surrounded by agricultural land as well as large rural single-family lots. The current zoning on site, as well as the surrounding area, is all Agriculture 3. And then the future land use designation that was recently updated in the Adams County Comprehensive Plan update designates this site as industrial medium. And then again, that East Regional Landfill site as industrial high. It's also surrounded by quite a bit of agriculture large scale, and then some agriculture small scale and public located directly adjacent to the east. So just to go over their operations as well as the modifications with this amendment. Again, this is an asbestos and non-hazardous liquid solidification and disposal facility. There are 3 amendments that are being proposed, or 3 modifications with this amendment being proposed. The first one is extending Saturday waste acceptance, which is currently 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Staff is recommending that that end time be 5 p.m., and I'll go into a little bit more detail into that towards the later slides. The second modification being proposed is redesignating cell 25 from a municipal solid waste disposal cell to an industrial solid waste disposal. And then the last modification is to accept technologically enhanced radioactive materials, or what are referred to as TNORM, at levels below the administrative release levels, and that's in accordance with CDPHE approvals for this facility. They're also updating, alongside this, their waste acceptance criteria, and that's also to match the what CDPHE has approved for this facility. They'll also be updating their 2013 Engineering Design and Operations Plan, or their EDOP, that I'll reference a couple times, and that's also an exhibit within your packet. And then finally, I just wanted to mention also that they discuss the applicant Conservation Services will no longer accept waste for treatment in the prepared bed biotreatment units, and this is being prepared in both units for closure in the coming months. So here's a look at the site as well as their current operations. I highlighted in those dashed red boxes any of the closed cells that they have on site. Again, this is really the northern, kind of northwest or northeast portion of the property itself. And then I highlighted in the green boxes, those are current cells as well as future cells. The asbestos cell is located in this general vicinity here adjacent to 88th Avenue. And then they have some administrative buildings located directly adjacent there as well. So there's 11 criteria when you look at a major amendment to a certificate of designation. This lists most of them, but they are also within your packets. So we look to see that the use is acceptable in the applicable zone district, that it's consistent with our standards and regulations, that it complies with our standards and regulations, that it's compatible and harmonious with the surrounding area, that the site itself is suitable for the certificate of designation request, that there is a need for this type of facility located within the county, that the applicant has documented compliance with health standards and operating procedures provided by CDPHE as well as the Adams County Health Department, and that the site is accessible to county residents as well as other potential users. Here's some photos from the site. These are all taken from 88th Avenue. One on the left here is looking towards the south, so this is the main entrance into the facility. Photo on the right is looking towards the west. They do have a lot of berming along East 88th Avenue, as well as some mature trees that they've planted decades ago. And then this photo on the left here is looking towards the north. And then this last photo here on the right is looking towards the east, again with the site and some berming and landscaping located here. During the referral period, we notified property owners and occupants within 1 mile of the site. We sent a total of 139 notifications. We did receive 3 public comments. 2 of those were opposed, and they cited dust as well as overall health concerns for the surrounding area. And then we did have 1 comment in support, and they noted that the facility does play a critical role in disposal services for the Adams County community. There were no objections from referral agencies. We did work with the Adams County Health Department to review and approve their current version of that EDOP. And then there was a lot of back and forth with the state, with CDPHE, and they provided a letter dated February 27th of this year stating that CSI can comply with technical, environmental, and public health standards provided, again, within that updated EDOP. So with that, staff does believe that this request is consistent with the development standards and regulations. There is definitely a need for this type of facility in the county, and as provided in that updated letter from Adams County Health Department, as well as CDPHE, this does comply with the health standards and operating procedures. Again, staff is recommending that the Saturday operations, again, requested 7 p.m., currently ends at 1 p.m., but we are recommending a 5 p.m. End time on Saturdays. And the applicant has agreed to that 5 p.m. As of the Planning Commission hearing. And then we're also recommending for the expiration, a 10-year expiration date of the extension request. The applicant is requesting about 35 years or so, but we wanted to be consistent with what was previously approved out there, and just felt that that time frame may be a little bit too long. So to be consistent, we wanted to recommend an expiration of 10 years. This did go to Planning Commission on March 27th, 2025. Planning Commission voted to recommend approval by a vote of 6-1. There were 2 public comments given at that time, and they noted dust concerns, accountability for the applicant as well, and then water well concerns in the area also. Planning Commission did recommend 2 modifications to 2 of the conditions that staff recommended. They felt more comfortable with a 20-year expiration date, that would give the applicant more time to be on site operating and then coming back before all of you. And then also a change to condition number 14, and this is the wind speed shutdowns, where they felt comfortable using the language from the 2015 approval, which I'll get into the condition that staff is going to recommend, but that condition from 2015 noted just that wind speeds exceeding 40 miles per hour would require shutdown. But I'll get into the specifics of that condition here in a few. But with that, staff is recommending approval of the major amendment to extend the certificate of designation with 11 findings of fact, 1 condition precedent, 18 conditions, and 2 notes. Here are the findings of fact. The condition precedent that we added is that the applicant would repair and maintain that entrance to the facility that you may have seen off of East 88th Avenue. So we are giving the applicant 3 months until July 15th from today's date to make those repairs, as well as address any sort of drainage issues that they may have at that entrance. So then diving into the conditions, the first one is that all original and amended conditions and requirements of the CD must be met and maintained. All conditions set forth by CDPHE, as stated in their letter from February 27th, 2025, shall be considered as conditions as well in this case. Again, the CD shall expire on April 15th, 2035, so 10 years. Again, the hours of acceptance, we're recommending 5 p.m. Closing time on Saturdays. All complaints received by the applicant concerning impacts to offsite properties and the resolution of those complaints shall be conveyed to the Director of Community and Economic Development, and then impacts to offsite properties shall be also responded to and resolved immediately by the applicant. And then if that impact cannot be immediately resolved, within 5 days of the complaint received, the applicant shall notify the Director of the offsite impact, proposed resolution, and what the expected completion date of that would be. The applicant shall also install radar activated or white noise backup alarms for their equipment to minimize noise impacts to the area. The applicant shall contact Adams County Public Works or Engineering Stormwater Regulatory Compliance section in regards to any sort of stormwater permit requirements. The applicant must ensure that all waste unloaded into the solidification basin is delivered by submerged fill from the delivery vehicle at all times, unless that's technically infeasible. The applicant shall provide details of complaints received, off-site impact resolution, and high wind shutdown periods as applicable within their quarterly report submissions to Adams County. The applicant shall remove trash or other waste material of the type which is brought to the facility along public rights-of-way within 1/2 mile of the facility, which is attributable to the facility operations. The applicant shall implement sediment control measures that prevent the tracking of any sort of mud, dirt, and debris from the site, specifically on the 88th Avenue. The site is subject to inspection from Adams County inspectors during reasonable working hours, and Adams County or designees may give notice of inspection prior to the inspection happening. All haul trucks shall cover their loads pursuant to state statute. The applicant shall install a wind gauge. This is the wind condition that Planning Commission had an amendment to or a change, but staff is recommending that the applicant shall install a wind gauge, such as an anemometer, as at the active work area to monitor wind speeds, and shall immediately stop all material management activities when wind speeds exceed a sustained 25 miles per hour, but also when gusts are exceeding 35 miles per hour. And the documentation of high wind shutdown periods shall be maintained by the applicant and described within the subsequent quarterly reports. All applicable operational standards found within the solid and hazardous waste disposal section of the Adams County Development Standards shall be followed. The applicant will need to comply with all provisions of the EDOP. The operator shall be limited to accepting waste that contains T-norm that is expressly exempted from the registration and licensing requirements of that section there, as demonstrated by generator waste profile documentation and facility confirmation sampling analysis. And then if there's any sort of fuel stored on site, the fuel storage at the site would need to be provided with secondary sort of containment. Fueling areas would need to be separated from the rest of the site's surface area. And then the applicant shall provide a spill prevention plan to release prevention plan for fuel storage and fueling operations. Then there are the 2 notes as well. Just wanted to note number 2, failure to comply with the requirements set forth in this permit may be justification for a show cause hearing where this permit may be revoked. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Nick. Appreciate it. So I'm just going to go over the land use process again. So after the staff presentation comes back to the board for questions, the applicant will have an opportunity to make a presentation. It will come back to the board for questions. At that time, we'll ask for public comment at the conclusion of questions from the board for the applicant. You have 3 minutes for the public to speak. I will ask you to wrap up your comments at about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Conclusion of the public comment, the applicant can respond if requested. It will then come back to the commissioners for discussion and then a motion at that time. So at this time, questions for the board for staff, from the board for staff. Commissioner O'Dorisio, Mullica, and Pinter. Not you.
Are we doing the digital thing or are we doing the hand wavy thing?
Go ahead and get she actually had she's first.
I gotta get to that.
I can adapt.
Pinter, then O'Dorisio.
Okay. Thank you so much for that presentation. You covered a lot of ground and a lot of things that are going to be of interest for the public. My first question is about the wind speed mitigation protocols that are included. I feel like that's one of the more concerning aspects of, because that's the materials in process, right? There's like where they are, they're contained, and then they're, where they are at the end and they're contained. But in the wind speed question, it's like as materials are being transported, their ability to be secure. How is this monitored? I see that there's a wind gauge, but who monitors it? Where does that wind gauge go? Is that something we can inspect to? Or what is the staff oversight of the safety of the materials on site?
We have some wonderful environmental staff that would probably be a little bit more knowledgeable about how to.
I see Katie Keefe coming on down. This is the phone a friend situation.
Hi, good afternoon, Commissioners.
afternoon.
Katie Keefe, Environmental Programs Manager. And the anemometer, we would like to see it located at the active face or where they are doing the primary handling of those fine particulate material types. And then my environmental compliance specialist, that would be part of her routine proactive inspections of the facility, is to inspect the anemometer and then to also look at records because they will be required to keep records of shutdown periods due to high winds.
That makes sense. And when you say would like to see, is there something that's missing in how the condition is written that would help you have more relevant data?
It does say at the active work area.
Okay, so is that
I think
sufficient?
that's specific enough, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That is my question. I'm sure as we have a conversation, more questions will come up.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Odoricio?
Yes, this is another question. 10 years ago, this case came in front of us. It was one of the first cases I had when I got here. And my concern, of course, after running as a first-time candidate for office was we don't want Adams County to be the dumping grounds for the rest of the state. And so we pushed the norm and T-norm to be excluded from this application. And so my question is, over the last 10 years, the more I've gotten to understand about norm and T-norm is something that I think I need to rely on the experts like you. Mm-hmm. And so I ask, there was two specific issues that I had concerns with, is that norm is normally occurring radioactive material and T-norm is technically enhanced?
Naturally occurring radioactive material.
Yeah, naturally occurring, not normally, naturally occurring radioactive material. And so the concern back then was that we were among the few, if not one of the few only, that would have allowed this in Colorado. So now it's my understanding that other landfills in Colorado are taking this type of material. That's one question. Mm-hmm. And then the second is, can you describe the actual dangers or impacts of having T-norm in a place like this? And the reason why I ask that is because it's been said that that's not as potentially harmful to the overall if it's disposed of the right manner. Can you address the issue of both the impact severity as well as the fairness issue that I was asking?
Sure, absolutely. I think important background to that is that the Solid and Hazardous Waste Division in CDPHE just, and actually the Solid and Hazardous Waste Commission adopted Regulation Part 20 to their solid waste regulations. And that Part 20 is specific to T-norm, norm and T-norm waste. And it sets activity limits for each of the radionuclides. So that could be radium. These are like progeny of uranium. So all of those radioisotopes in total, they set a threshold. And if the material contains more than what is considered background activity level for Colorado, which is 5 picocuries per gram of dry weight, and that's a dry weight basis, then it does not have to be registered as a T-norm waste. That has to go to a registered T-norm disposal facility. And so what CSI has committed to is accepting waste that is only below that threshold, that does not require registration with the state. And the registration threshold and licensing requirements kick in for those landfills that will be accepting and disposing of waste material that contains norm and T-norm radioisotopes at higher than that concentration. And the reason they set the threshold for what requires registration is lots of modeling, lots of background research, and determining that ALARA, which is the as low as reasonably achievable protection for workers in the public, would be maintained without any additional controls for that waste that is below that regulated activity level.
If I might follow up.
But there are, because of this Part 20, so to your, I guess your second question, with Part 20, there are now landfills or disposal facilities, particularly like centralized exploration and production waste management facilities. So those are the facilities that take waste like produced water, materials from oil and gas extraction and processing. And those materials do often contain radioisotopes above that threshold and are considered then a regulated waste, a regulated material. And so to dispose of those, that waste management landfill has to go through the registration process. There are additional controls and requirements and standards and regulations that they have to comply with.
Right. So if I understand this correctly, there are other landfills that will accept those, even those that are above the registration level. And this is only asking to allow stuff that is below the registration level.
Correct.
And so in reality, this landfill potentially could actually have more protection than some of those others because they're not even accepting the ones that are, we won't even in this case accept things that are above registration, requiring registration.
Yeah. And it was set at that level based on risk. So accepting waste that contains norm and T-norm below that background concentration, which again is 5 picocuries per gram of dry weight basis, basically no risk other than accepting just general solid waste for disposal. So typical, landfill best management practices and regulatory requirements are sufficient to protect the environment and public health.
And we didn't have that level of transparency 10 years ago. We also didn't have this level of sophistication within Adams County to have a team like this. And we also didn't have that level of protection at the state level overall.
Right.
And so, and because it's now spread out, because other landfills are going to be taking it, those are my 3 concerns is the CDPHE increased level of protection, what we have at Adams County with the actual dedicated professional environmental staff, and then the fairness issue. Those were the 3 big things that I was concerned about, is the lack of transparency and protection and accountability. That, not saying that they would have, but there wasn't anything that I felt comfortable at that time with allowing norm and T-norm. I will say I'm much more tolerant based on those things that I just mentioned. So it was such a huge part of the discussion 10 years ago. I wanted to make sure we get all the stuff that you mentioned on the record. So if somebody were to ask, why would you say one thing 10 years ago now? A lot has changed in that.
A lot has changed. And the adoption of Part 20 in 2020 or 2021 really delineated between those concentrations and made a distinction between what was below risk thresholds and what would require additional protections.
Thank you. No questions at this time.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner. I don't see any other commissioners in the queue. Want to speak?
Yeah.
Commissioner Henson, then I'm going to jump in here after you.
Thanks. So my question is, how long, so the Planning Commission recommended one length of permit and your staff recommended a different number. Can you please talk to me about that?
That's correct. So staff recommended 10 years. Again, the first part was really just wanting to be consistent with what we approved in 2015 at that time. Staff also felt that a lot can change maybe in 2 decades. And at this time, Planning Commission recommended 20. The applicant was asking for more than 30. So when we recommended 10, we definitely felt that 30 plus years was a long time in between expiration dates and coming back and things changing. as we just discussed, how much has changed in the last 10 years. So that's why we felt 10 years was still a good period of time, and it worked this time around as well.
Okay, we're going to hear from the applicant. So that's thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Pinter.
Just to follow up on that, because I'm reading my screen. I've got the packet open on my personal device, and then I'm just looking because the number one note in the conditions, in the note to conditions, said that these conditional use permits will expire in 30 years. But then I just see on the screen you were talking about 10, and so I want to make sure that when we're talking about this, the notes and conditions we're referencing include the 10 for the rationale you just described.
Yeah, that might have been a typo. Staff's definitely recommending 10, and Planning Commission suggested a 20-year expiration. But we're still sticking with the staff recommendation, which should be
Can I see that 3 on the big screen, and I can just ignore, because the packets that we get were probably generated a little bit earlier. Okay, 2035. Thank you. That works. So yes, what I have in our packet from before is just a little bit earlier, and I did, just for the clerk's reference, pull it from our website, so the website packet might be a little out of date as well.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. I just had a question for staff. The instrument to measure wind speed, are you comfortable with the language that's in there on your accessibility access to that?
So yes, we are. And actually we, our team worked together. So the environmental compliance specialists that would be doing the inspections, myself, and then also our built environment impact specialists all worked on crafting that to make sure that it was enforceable.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that, Katie. I don't have anything additional. I just want to add to Commissioner O'Dorisio, and thank you to staff for noting CDPHE's regulations to the T norm. The norm in the T norm is that the county also, since 10 years ago, we've also established our own health department, and they've reviewed it, and their notes are also included in the packet. Okay, so at this time, the applicant would like to come forward and make a presentation. We are officially afternoon. If you can please state your name and address for the record.
There, can you hear me? Madam Chair, Commission members, my name is Tom Schweitzer. I am WM Engineering Manager for Colorado. My address is 2640 Castle Crest Drive, Castle Rock, Colorado. And also with me to potentially assist in addressing questions, we have Sophia Parker, who is the District Manager for CSI, Chris Anderson, who's our Area Manager of Disposal Operations, and Mark McMullen with American Environmental Consulting, who assisted in the preparation of this application. Since 1989, Conservation Services has provided Adams County and the surrounding industrial community with environmentally sound management for disposal of solid and liquid waste, all of which are non-hazardous. No regulated hazardous waste, regulated radioactive waste, or waste containing regulated concentrations of polychlorinated biphenyls or PCBs are accepted at the site. Wastes received at the site in solid form are transported directly to the disposal cell for disposal. Wastes that arrive in liquid form are unloaded into a concrete mixing basin combined with solidification agent, and once solidified, is transported to the disposal cell. Of the 167 acres that of permitted disposal area, approximately 44 acres currently contain waste. And Based on our remaining available capacity and our projected incoming volumes looking forward for tonnages received at the gate, we anticipate approximately 75 to 100 years of life remains at this facility. Within the permitted boundary, we have a total of 12 separate disposal cells that are shown on the site plan. 10 of those cells are designated for disposal of industrial solid waste. One of those cells is for asbestos waste disposal, and we have one cell that's currently designated for future disposal of municipal solid waste. In addition, as referenced, the facility has on site a treatment method referred to as prepared bed biological treatment for treating liquids, sludges, soils, and other materials impacted with organic waste, typically from the petroleum industry. And these treatment units are located over two closed solid waste industrial cells, cells 1 and 2. The containment system approved at the site for the industrial waste cells as well as the municipal solid waste cell consists of a base and side slope liner, and then the facility is overlain with a final cover once it reaches final elevation. The base and side slope liner is a composite system consisting of 2 feet of low permeability compacted clay overlain by a high density polyethylene geomembrane. The final cover consists of 18 to 20 inches of soil moisture storage layer, and that's overlain with 6 inches of topsoil. The containment system for the asbestos cell consists of 24 inches of compacted clay on the base, and it has the same final cover design as the industrial waste and municipal solid waste facility or cells. Environmental monitoring at the site includes groundwater and leachate monitoring in accordance with an approved groundwater monitoring and reporting plan, and surface water monitoring that's conducted in accordance with a permit issued under the Colorado Discharge Permit System. The monitoring results for the site show no releases from the landfill and demonstrate the facility's compliance with Colorado solid waste environmental protection standards. Staffing at the facility may vary, but typically consists of seven employees, a district manager, an operations manager, a gatehouse attendant, equipment operators, and an equipment technician. And the on-site equipment, which typically includes a water truck, motor grader, dozer, excavator, haul trucks, they are equipped with white noise backup alarms that are inaudible to nearby residents to mitigate off-site noise impacts. With respect to the modifications proposed, the operations under this CD amendment will follow the current permit requirements with the following requested modification. And the first pertains to extending the Saturday operating hours to allow acceptance of disposal waste to 7 p.m., which would be consistent with the approved Monday through Friday operations. Staff has recommended a 5 p.m. closure time, which WM accepts. The second is a redesignation of the future municipal disposal cell to an industrial solid waste cell, which would be consistent with most of the cells on site. And this redesignation would eliminate the future potential for blowing litter as well as landfill gas generation resulting from the decomposition of municipal solid waste. And the final modification would be the recognition of accepting TNORM at the site at levels in accordance with the CDPHE Radiation Control Division regulations, which basically is are the exempt T-norm levels that were previously discussed. And also that was discussed was our plans to discontinue accepting waste for treatment in the prepared biobed treatment units. And we are developing a closure design plan for submittal to CDPHE in Adams County for approval prior to moving forward with that closure. The reason for closing is that the treatment process involves introducing microorganisms to the material in order to degrade the petroleum hydrocarbons in the material, potentially rendering the material suitable for reuse, such as for land reclamation purposes. What we found, however, the process required to manage the operation associated with that has outweighed the benefit of any reuse material that we've derived. And so basically has resulted in our decision to discontinue that operation. With respect to the conditions that staff has set forth, of those, there are two that have been raised that we would like to discuss with the board. And the first has to do with the 10-year permit term. I previously noted that 75 to 100 years of remaining life is estimated at CSI, and WM has requested a permit term of 35 years, which is less than that anticipated projected life. And the permit term under which the facility is allowed to operate influences capital expenditure decisions for implementing new site improvements or material management technologies. And such improvements often require a significant capital investment that are more likely to be feasible with an extended permit term over which costs may be absorbed or amortized. And WM acknowledges and appreciates the Planning Commission's recommendation to increase the permit to 20 years, but would, however, request the board's consideration for a 35-year permit term as originally requested. For perspective, the certificate of designation for the East Regional Landfill immediately south of CSI includes a 30-year term, which is along the lines of the term requested by WM. And I would add that regardless of the permit term, whether it's 10, 20, or 35 years, does not negate the board's ability to pull the permit for any noncompliance. Staff's recommended note number 2 states that failure to comply with the requirements set forth in this permit may be justification for a show cause hearing where the permit may be revoked, which is typically what we operate under the particular condition with respect to our other landfills, that any landfill, whether it's a life of site or a 10-year term, is subject to that condition, which is always available for the board to enact if necessary. The second condition is condition 14, which pertains to closure wind speeds. The staff recommended wind speeds for stopping material management activities are sustained winds of 25 miles per hour and gusts of 35 miles per hour. These wind speeds are significantly lower than the limits in the Colorado solid waste regulations, which require facilities to cease operations at sustained winds of 40 miles an hour and gusts of 55 miles per hour. And since CSI does not accept municipal solid waste, the site experiences little, if any, wind-blown debris and does not experience the litter control challenges that municipal solid waste facilities often encounter. CSI is operated under the Colorado wind closure requirements, and it is my understanding that the closure wind speeds in the certificate of designation for East Landfill adjacent to CSI are also based on those Colorado requirements of 40 miles per hour sustained and 55 miles per hour gusts. I would also offer that most of the waste received at CSI arrives in liquid form, and the mixing and solidification process results in a moist material that doesn't generate dust when it's placed in the landfill. Now, with respect to dust coming from roads and around the facility, dust control measures employed at CSI include applying water to roads, sweeping paved roads and surfaces around the mixing basin, posting speed limits along the roads, and ongoing training of operations personnel regarding control of dust emissions. In addition, the nearest neighbor to the facility has been provided with the cell phone numbers of operations personnel and has been encouraged to contact WM in the event dust is observed. The more restrictive wind speed requirements will result in significantly more frequent closures that will impact not only facility operations, but customers that would be turned away, we feel, unnecessarily. WM would be willing to accept the Planning Commission's recommended wind closure speed of 45 miles per hour and request the board's approval of the Planning Commission's recommendation. I would note that regardless of the wind speed closure threshold, the facility would still be required to comply with Staff Condition 5, requiring immediate resolution of complaints from off-site properties. The closure wind speed request that we're requesting the board's consideration on applies only to the industrial waste disposal cells. For the asbestos waste disposal cells, CSI has followed and will continue to follow a lower high wind threshold where asbestos unloading is performed only when wind speeds do not exceed 20 miles an hour and wind gusts do not exceed 30 miles an hour. So concluding, CSI provides Adams County and the surrounding area with waste disposal options for the industrial community while providing economic benefits, including revenue brought into Adams County and employment opportunities for local residents. I would point out that 4 CSI employees live in Adams County. CSI has a long-standing compliance history as evidenced by environmental monitoring reporting and regulatory agency inspections, and values its positive working relationship with Adams County at this facility. WM is an active supporter of community events and programs and has been privileged to support community-focused activities in Adams County, which would include Town of Bennett Arts Council, Bennett Community Food Bank, Bennett Days, Bennett Fire Protection District 7, and Bennett High School's on-time sports t-shirt program supporting high school athletics. We appreciate this opportunity to present this application before the Board of County Commissioners, and we look forward to the board's approval and are open to questions.
Okay, great. Thank you for your presentation. So at this time, questions from the board for the applicant. Commissioner Pinter.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate your detailed explanations. I wanted to circle back just because I think it's an area of concern and import for community around the non-permeable surfaces that you use. It described as the base and the side cover. I think you call it a base cover and a side cover, which is not, but basically the protection underneath.
Right.
You had said it was primarily non-permeable clay, and
Low,
I'm just
I'm sorry.
no,
Low-
and I
low
just would like a
permeability.
little more information about that. And then you also had described the materials to be on top of it,
Right.
and then the testing that goes along with it. And I just, because it's an area of such importance, I would like to just hear a little bit more from you about how that's designed, tested, and the frequency of testing.
The liner system is a composite liner with the underlying liner consisting of the low permeability clay that is available on site. And that material is placed in 6-inch lifts with a sheep's foot compactor that's needed, and with each lying lift with that sheep's foot compactor, it's kneaded together. And throughout the construction, so for a 2-foot thick clay liner, there's basically 4 lifts that would be placed in the cell. And with respect to permeability, not sure if this number would necessarily resonate, but the state requirement and what's in our permit is that it needs to be compacted to a permeability of no greater than 1 × 10⁻⁷ centimeters per second. And so what they do, they use an apparatus in the laboratory where they bring the soil samples in and they run water through it and they time. They basically log the number of days, sometimes weeks, if it's extremely impermeable, in terms of when the water will start to move through that sample. And also there's field testing that's performed throughout construction with a CQA specialist that basically collects field densities and moisture contents from the material as it's being placed, and all of that is logged, and it's included in a construction monitoring report that's submitted to the state and the county for review. And in areas where the density may not be quite where it needs to be, the contractor goes back and reworks that until everything conforms to those requirements. Once the clay liner is placed, there's a high density polyethylene geomembrane that is deployed across the top of that liner, and this is both in the base and the side slope of the liner in the cell, basically on which the waste will reside. And it's basically welded together. It comes in rolls, it's deployed, and then the rolls are seamed together. Those seams are all subject to testing, including destructive testings where samples are actually cut out of the geomembrane, shipped to a lab where they stretch on it, they bend it, they perform all kinds of tests to confirm that it will not fail outside of what the standard criteria have been established for that particular material. So there's full-time CQA, construction quality assurance oversight throughout the construction. It's a third-party contractor that basically provides that service, and that kind of, in a nutshell, is kind of a high-level overview. I don't know if that totally addresses your question with respect to how that's performed.
That's helpful. I think the other I appreciate the piece about the testing, both on-site and off-site, to ensure that the quality of the product is as expected. I couldn't find in the materials. Could you point me to what additional water quality testing is done in the area surrounding the facility to ensure there isn't any unexpected water table or runoff contamination?
The facility performs groundwater monitoring currently along the north side of the landfill. There are 4 groundwater monitoring wells, and they are monitored semi-annually in accordance with the parameters defined in the solid waste regulations under the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and those results are evaluated. Statistics are performed on those results to basically confirm whether or not we see any outliers where it might indicate some sort of a release from the facility. And once all that is done, those reports are compiled and then submitted to the state and the county, and that's done twice a year.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Great, thank you, Commissioner. Any other commissioners? Questions for the applicant? Commissioner Henson?
Yeah. So could you please talk about the impacts of regarding your request for a term longer than 10 years, say between a 10 and a 20-year term, what that would mean for the community, any community impacts or impacts and the impact to the work that you're doing there?
Our primary reason for wanting the longer term is it gives us more flexibility for deciding what type of capital improvements we might want to consider for the site, or if there's a new technology, there's a new material management system that we may want to consider. And sometimes those result in a significant financial commitment to do that. And if in our accounting rules within the company, they allow us only to capitalize those projects over the term of the site. Now, if the site didn't have a term limit, we would basically, if we're calculating about 100 years remaining, we would basically have 100 years over which to amortize those costs. So if we're looking at 10 years, and we've basically got the 10 years over which to amortize any capitalized costs, it limits the potential or the possibilities of options that we might consider as it relates to site improvements or implementing new technologies. And so that's our primary rationale for seeking a longer life, because ultimately what it boils down to is, in order to amortize those costs, they basically end up as fees in our gate rates, which obviously affects the customers too. And we try to keep the site as competitive as possible with respect to our other similar operations in the area.
Thank you. My other question is kind of for staff. So since the last time this permit was approved for 10 years, we now have our own health department. How often does the health department, or is it environmental health? What departments from our county are inspecting this site, and at what frequency?
Yeah, I'll ask Katie Keefe, Environmental Programs Manager, to answer that question.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Jen just introduced me, Katie Keefe. So my team does do proactive routine inspections of all landfill facilities. Currently, the CSI facility is on a quarterly proactive inspection. And then at least, I believe every 6 months, the state CDPHE, their solid waste unit compliance person, does do an inspection at CSI. And at that time, we join them. That counts as one of our proactive routine inspections. And the health department, our own health department, their solid waste specialist also joins those inspections.
Thank you. And then is your department, I'm assuming NOCDPHE does your department also then, if you find something exceeding appropriate limits, can you close down the site in that case?
We wouldn't close it down immediately. We'd go through the appropriate process of issuing violations, notice of violation. There'd be an opportunity to abate, correct the hazard. And then if that failed, it would escalate through our normal process through the county attorney's office.
Okay, but you can begin that process based on our own inspection without waiting for CDPHE.
Yes.
Okay.
And to be clear, we've never had an experience with CSI where they haven't been willing to just immediately correct something or address a concern. So it's never really gotten to that point.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you, Katie. Commissioner O'Dorisio.
I have a question kind of for staff in line of what the applicant is saying. I will also make a statement that one of the reasons also, in addition to the norm T norm and the fairness issue of others to be able to accept norm T norm, and one of my concerns was also at the time 10 years ago there was complaints from the neighborhoods about the two landfills that were fairly close to each other, and both landfills were pointing to the other one. And so that was a challenge that we had also, is that that's one of the reasons why I even wanted her 5 or 7 years at that time, just to make sure that we had folks coming back and kind of making sure people are, accountable at the time. I think that with the expansion of the norm and T norm here, it makes me feel more comfortable to stick with the 10, because we're still expanding the scope of what would be allowed. I still agree with staff that 10 years is fine. And if you guys continue to do what you've done, it should not be that difficult of a process comparatively. And so for me, I'm going to probably support that. But I would also ask staff, since that time, what was the condition over the last 10 years as it relates to wind speed and dust? Do you guys recall? I'm sorry.
Like how frequently there was a need for closure? Is that the question?
Actually, no, I'm so sorry. Thank you for asking that. No, I was asking what was the condition that we had imposed? And did the conditions change from 2015 to now? Was it 25 or 45 when it looks at condition 14 as well as the condition 5? Like, are we asking for more stringent than we had in the last 10 years?
So at that time, it was stated as just winds exceeding 40 miles per hour.
Say that again. I'm so sorry.
Oh, sorry. So at that time, it was winds exceeding 40 miles per hour. That's
40.
how that condition read.
40.
Correct.
Okay. And then as far as number 5 goes, did we still have the same condition number 5 that regarding complaints and issues if there was issues with the?
That was carried over from the previous approval.
Got it. And you're recommending 25. They're asking for 45. We had 40 in the past. Can you explain? I'm asking staff again why we're going to 25 again, from an environmental perspective or
Sure.
protection perspective.
Yes, Katie Keith, Environmental Programs Manager. Really, it's really primarily based on our collective scientific understanding of the significant health impacts of exposure to airborne particulate matter. It's evolved since the certificate of designation was originally approved and then amended in 2014. The wind speed limits that we are recommending are very much in line with other permits that we have recommended approval and approved since 2019 for extractive and disposal uses. And the primary concern is the materials that are used to solidify the liquids are things like concrete fines, concrete kiln dust, and fly ash material. So those are definitely more susceptible to being carried by wind, and the handling, conveying, moving of those materials across the property without any, specific control technologies for that dust, like a dust collection system or a hopper. Really, the most effective control strategy would be a best management practice of ceasing those activities when wind speeds reach 25 miles per hour sustained and 35 miles per hour of gusts. And I'll also note that the state regulations that do specify the 40 mile per hour or greater of sustained winds, that was, as far as I could go back in the record, those were in effect in 2007 and they have not been amended since.
Thank you very much. And this is one of the reasons I'm absolutely ecstatic to have this kind of help on our staff. So thank you. Thank you.
All right. Anything else from commissioners? Okay. Thank you to the applicants. No additional questions at this time. And so now we're to public comment. So Erica, who do you have signed up for public comment?
Royce Graham.
Okay, Royce, if you'd please come down and state your name and address for the record.
Yes, my name is Royce Graham. I live at 43401 East 88th Avenue, Benton, Colorado. About a mile east from the dump we're talking about. There's no other questions. I'll go ahead and just go, and then you guys stop me if you got anything. But I've owned my piece of property for approximately 25 years. I had a barn out there is all I had back then. 8 years ago, me and my wife built a house out there. It was about, I think prior to building that house, I came here, and I know it's or I actually called the office here. The reason I wasn't here on 3/18 because I've been out of town. So I had business that I had to take care of. So I was gone before for this the prior meeting, and I just got back a couple days ago. So sorry about that, but I do appreciate you letting me talk here. But prior to the house, I was here about, I think it had to be, I guess what I'm here now is 10 years ago when this dump came up then, and it was called the fly ash dump. I was here at the meeting. I testified at that meeting, and basically I didn't have a house out there, so my neighbor told me about it, and that's why I came to the meeting. But the fly ash dump was, their permit was not renewed, and that was Waste Management. So I actually thought, boy, we won that case, and that fly ash dump is going to be closed. And the reason I wanted it closed is I guess you guys, the people that live out there, you would not believe the dust that flies off of there, especially when they got their equipment running. There's been times where you go down to the road, you have to honestly almost stop to get through 88th Avenue because of the amount of dust. And you don't know if there's anybody else coming the other way. So I was, of course, from there now let's see here, excuse me. And it says, so I've been reading through a lot of this information on here because I didn't even know about the asbestos that's allowed in this. The company I work for is a construction company, and you got friable and non-friable asbestos. You know, friable is airborne asbestos, and they're putting this in this facility, and with the dust and stuff that's flying around, I would think people would be freaked out thinking that they have asbestos and what other contaminants are blowing around out there, especially with all the people that are living out there. And there's a lot of homes out there, and it's almost every 33 acre to 40 acre spot is filled up out there. So there's a lot of people living up there, and there's a lot of people using 88th Avenue.
Please continue. You're down to about 15 seconds, but go ahead and continue.
Okay, well then, if you also read on page 6 of this document, it actually on the findings from 2022, it's not suitable to be near residential uses. And that's right in the documents that you guys have. So and I think if you start looking at that, there's about 30 homes that are within at least 2 miles from this facility. And I'll bet there's at least 100 that are within 5 miles of this facility. And you know, I'd really like to see some of these reports that people are going in there and doing inspections on here. Could that be even made to the public to see what we have? Is the water being contaminated? Okay. Are they doing air monitoring to see is any of this asbestos even flying around out there?
Mr. Graham, your time is up.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your comments and questions. Erica?
Chair, that was everyone signed up.
That was everyone that was signed up. Go ahead.
It was brought to my attention during the break that there may be 2 additional members of the public that did not have a chance to sign up.
I really appreciate that. So if there are members from the public that would like to come down and speak to this matter, you have 3 minutes. If you can please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Commissioners. Thanks for letting me speak. My name is Nathan LeBlanc, and I live at 11332 Ironton Street here in Henderson, Colorado. I'm speaking in favor of the CSI permit renewal, both as a resident and as an employee. I have worked at Waste Management for 4 years, CSI specifically for 2 years. At CSI, I am a heavy equipment operator, and I am responsible for solidification and landfill operations with a strong focus on protecting the environment. I take great pride in my work, and I would like to keep working at CSI for many years to come. I have counterparts at solid waste landfills who do not have to worry about the future of their sites because most sites in Colorado have a lifetime span, a life of site permit. The ability to invest in employees and operations is hampered when permits are not long enough to allow for a return on investment, which is one of the reasons I support CSI's permit renewal. CSI has a long history operating since 1980, the 1980s, and I do enjoy working at CSI, also living in Adams County. I hope that you will support renewing the permit. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Great, thank you for your time. Next, you can state your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Jalen Bartlett. I live in Adams County, 56300 East 25th Avenue in Strasburg, Colorado. I've worked at CSI for a month now. I'm a laborer and I'm responsible for the watering, sweeping, and housekeeping for the site. CSI employees are committed to being good neighbors. We take part in trainings to ensure we follow the CDPE regulations and minimize the impacts around the surroundings. Many of my colleagues and I have called Adams County CSI home. I'm proud that WM and CSI have donated to the community in nearby Bennett facilities. I expect to urge the board to approve the permit and planning to commissions.
Great, thank you for your comments and for being here today. Good morning, if you can please state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, my name is Patricia Gutierrez and I live at 41901 East 88th Avenue, which we are technically right across the street from Waste Management. And me and my husband did come to the previous hearing to let you guys know about our concerns. And as Royce, that I had a pleasure meeting here a couple of weeks back, we did come with the concern of just dust going everywhere. I actually didn't know about the asbestos part even from the prior meeting. But when we purchased the property back 4 years ago, our understanding was the asbestos side was closed off, which I believe it was 10 years ago, which is what helped us or decide that we wanted to purchase the property there. But just since we've purchased it 4 years ago, we've had issues of dust, and we have gone, and my husband has gone and talked to Sophia Parker, which is, I guess, the manager there, to mitigate about the wind or the dirt and, if they can water more. And at that time, there was really no even empathy shown. It's just like, we don't have the staff. What it is, it is. So there wasn't really a thing of, I apologize, we'll try our best. Yes, they have gone out since the last hearing to our property to give us a letter and hand us business cards, which my issue is, okay, in the 4 years I've been contacting code enforcement. They have never sent anyone down that I've known, and even the officer that answered the one day that I did talk to an officer is, I'll send someone when I have someone available because they need to physically see it. I don't accept videos, I don't accept pictures with timestamps of just all the dirt that is flying over 88th onto our properties. So I just don't know, are they agreeing to fix that just because their renewal is coming up or, down the road, which I'm assuming within the 10 years, they had to have done that anyways. And I guess it wasn't done. So is it now because it's renewal time? What are the steps we're going to take to actually have them comply or to have violations on the records because no one goes out?
Okay, and your time is up. Thank you for speaking today.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else in the public that'd like to speak to this matter? Not seeing anyone from the public. The applicant, would you like to respond at this time to some of the questions and or comments from the public or previous comments from the board?
Hi, Tom Schweitzer. With respect to the asbestos, I guess just a quick overview in terms of that operation. Asbestos waste that's brought into that cell is either brought in double bags, or it's in rigid containers. And once it's placed in the cell, it's covered with soil by the end of the day. And I would also reiterate our wind speed restrictions that we employ for that particular cell, which is 20 miles per hour sustained and 30 miles per hour gusts, anything beyond that, we would not accept. And one other item of note is the site receives very little asbestos. I think so far this year, I think we've received 3 or 4 loads, amounting to maybe 3 cubic yards of asbestos. And I could be mistaken. I think the primary customer is from the railroad, where they'll bring this material that we then will dispose in that cell. It's been an ongoing customer that we've just continued to provide that service. So, but it's none of the asbestos is exposed. As mentioned, it's either triple bagged or double bagged, or it's in rigid containers, and then it's buried. So, and with respect to the dust, that's one thing I'd mentioned in terms of what we employ at the site is ongoing training to not only introduce what measures we need to employ to new employees, but to reinforce that. And as mentioned, we have provided our contact information to the Gutierrez family, that they should not hesitate to contact us if they observe dust at their facility, because we don't want to impact them any more than they want to be impacted. So, are there other questions that the public had raised that I may not have addressed?
I don't see any other questions. Is this your phone a friend standing behind you?
Yes. Oh.
Hello. My name is Sophia Parker, 2045 Oneida Street, Denver, Colorado. I'm the district manager of CSI, and I just want to say that we are committed to being good neighbors. And a previous event, when I spoke to Mr. Gutierrez, who is our neighbor, I was, attempting to explain in Spanish about fly ash and cement kiln dust. And so my deepest apologies if I ever seemed to blow him off. We are definitely committed to being good neighbors, and we recently met with him to give him our cards, to discuss with him and give him the empowerment that he can call us when there's any concerns and let us know, and we will attempt to mitigate them at all costs. So thank you.
Thank you for that. I do have a question for you, Mr. Schweitzer, that was asked by the public. Is the type of asbestos that you accept? So what the public stated was friable versus non-friable asbestos.
It's primarily friable. It may contain some non-friable as well. I don't think the cell accepts any type of asbestos within the disposal footprint in the industrial waste cells. It all goes into the asbestos cell, so it would basically be both.
Okay, thank you.
Chair, I do have a question.
Yes, go
and,
ahead.
and this may be for you and then potentially also for staff. All of our records are publicly available for tests and monitoring and that sort of thing, but I'm just kind of curious, when you do the water table testing and you do some of the other testing, where are those reports reported that don't necessarily come to Adams County? Because I'm going to ask our team about how to find things that come to Adams County.
The groundwater monitoring reports that are prepared are submitted jointly to Adams County and to CDPHE.
Okay. Do you have any reporting or monitoring that goes directly to the state at CDPHE, Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment?
That does not go to the county?
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I think pretty much everything is sent jointly.
Okay. Well, then I'll have a follow-up question when we're concluded with the applicant portion for our staff on where to find those reports.
Okay, anything additional for the applicant? All right, not seeing anything. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it. So at this time, it's up for commissioner discussion.
Yeah, just a second half of my question. I know that our website is under construction. No shade to the comms department. Love you guys. Thank you for updating it. But in the interim, where can members of the public find these reports? Are they housed within your department, within community economic development, or is it with public health department, or where can we find these reports, and what is the best way for a member of the public to get access to these reports that are housed with our local government?
Yes, so the groundwater monitoring reports all of the environmental monitoring reports that are required both by our CD and the state regulations. They do send those to Adams County, also our health department, and the state when they do issue those. And we do go through those when we receive them. Right now, we keep them electronically in our department files, our M drive. But any member of the public, and I can provide the URL, the state has developed a really cool interactive GIS map. And so just like they do with air permit sources, they have it also for the solid and hazardous waste management units. So those facilities that have a permit from the state, you can find it on a map, you can click it, and it takes you to their online database called OnBase. And it has all the records going back from the commencement of that facility.
Okay, that's really helpful. So people don't have to necessarily know the name or their precise address or a record number. They can go based on I live here, what reports are available at what facilities that are near my home.
Absolutely.
And that's with the CDPHE, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment's website.
Yes. Yeah, they just released it, I think, about a year ago. So
okay. There was also a question, I believe, from Ms. Gutierrez about code enforcement. And so I don't know if that's something that someone could respond to, the code enforcement process, if that was the right person to call, or what the code enforcement procedure would be here.
That's a great question. I did speak to Ms. Gutierrez after the Planning Commission and gave her my card. We had not received those complaints. And I have spoke with code enforcement just to reconfirm that if there are complaints received, especially in that area where we have 2 landfills, to immediately refer them to my team.
Okay, and so that will get some clarity and communication. So the complaints, when being made, are going to the right person.
Right. And she now has my contact information as well. So she can always contact me directly.
Yeah, I also call Katie with almost all my questions, so you're in a good spot. Those are all my questions, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the board? Discussion? Nothing further? Okay, so then we're next item on is the motion.
Is the motion screen up? No. Yes.
Commissioner Doricio.
Yeah. I would like to make a motion to approve the major amendment to extend the certificate of designation EXG 2024-2 with 11 findings of fact, 1 condition precedent, 18 conditions and 2 notes. I will note that's it.
Second.
Commissioners, I apologize if we could, before we publish that vote, I just want to clarify because that slide's a little confusing. I want to make sure, are we going with the staff recommendations or with the Planning Commission changes?
Going with the staff recommendations.
I was staff recommendations as well.
Thank you.
Same. And the motion passes 5-0. So with no additional items on our agenda this morning, we are adjourned at 1:12 p.m.